Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Football, it began simple enough. Line up 11 men on one side, 11 on the other. The team with the ball is the offense. The team without it is the defense. Snap the ball, you run, you collide, and you tackle. But now football is much more. No longer just a game of brawn, it's also a game of brains. This is Bear Necessities.
Welcome to Bear Necessities. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm your host, Jordan Silveira. Thank you so much for joining me. See, we have a few people here already. Jeremy, good to see you. Hope all is well in San Diego County. Just going to be going over the traditional breakdown of what will become usual as you tune in to Bear Necessities. We're going to go over the matchup leading into this week. As we all are aware, we're going to be facing the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers. Sunday Night Football, Football Night in America, NBC Primetime. Exciting, it always is. Nothing like seeing the old bitter rivalry that is, at this point, I love to joke because I just don't think we can pass over it. We watched the league try to set up a situation where they assumed, like much of the media, that the Bears would be bad this year and drop a game to the San Francisco 49ers, tying up the all-time win record so that when we got to week 2, they assumed that the Bears would drop another game and the Packers would establish supremacy in the NFL as the most winning franchise in the league. Well, you can see the smile, and I know we're all chuckling at home because guess what? The Bears are not the same old Bears that you thought they were. They found a way to eke one out and pull one out against San Francisco in a monsoon, and we get to spoil the league's plan because guess what? The Bears are now up 2 games in the series. So even if they were to lose this game against the Packers, the Bears are still the most winning franchise in the league. So excited about that. How can we not enjoy seeing Justin Fields versus Aaron Rodgers, the old era as it starts to close eventually, Justin Fields coming up in the new era. At some point or another, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where Justin Fields is going to overtake the North. And how can we not be excited about that? So thank you so much for joining me. We'll get into it relatively soon here. Ralph, I see Justin Fields all 22 looks scary bad. I think the Bears may be looking at quarterback next year. Well, Ralph, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I think that we're going to go over the all 22. I mean, I haven't even got to a chance here, but I just want to, salutations, welcome everybody in. I appreciate it. Corey, thanks for tuning in. Tareen, see you here. I appreciate it. Bear down, brother. So in addition to breaking down the Packers game and talking about that, of course, at the end, we will have a Q&A where you guys can issue any questions, comments you have. As always, I want to make sure that it's reminded that if you want to contribute to Bear Necessities in any way, you can get a hold of me at my email, jackpot2123@gmail. It's down in the description as well. In addition to, I always say, if you'd like to even do like a voicemail, just do one on your little voice recorder app or on your notes app on your phone, email it, send it, so that we can play it. I'm okay with interacting with all of you. I actually would welcome it. I think it's fun that way. So in that situation, we'll do a little bit of a Q&A, any questions you have, any talking points you'd like to discuss at the end. But before we even dive into the Packers and what that matchup's going to look like, I want to establish just a regular, routine here where when you tune into Bear Necessities, we can expect a film breakdown on what I deem to be the most pivotal plays in the week before. These are the plays that, to me, mean something a little different than what you may see. And, of course, you're going to see certain things like the touchdowns or the interceptions. And, yes, we have to go over those because guess what? They are pivotal plays. But you may even get a little nugget here or there. This is a play I thought that maybe should have been used more, things of that sort. So let's go ahead and get into it. Again, thank you so much for coming and joining along. Nomad, I see you got the Bears winning by a point. I love it. I love the optimism. So let's get to it. Let's jump in here and we'll go screen 1. And then just a little thumbs up or yes, I can see it would be wonderful. All right. I will take it that you guys can see. Looks good. Okay, perfect, Jeremy. Thank you. So what we're looking at here is this is actually, I mean, I'll try to keep it relatively chronological. We can sit there and try to go through the game, but I may jump around a little bit. But starting off here, this is 45 seconds into the game. This is the first sack Justin Fields took. Corey, you were saying, just looking at my Twitter, I don't engage with Packer fans either. I don't really have much to say. Yeah, Corey, I totally agree. I mean, I don't mean to sit here and get on that guy too much, but he's not my favorite personality on Twitter. Okay, so this is the sack that we're going to be looking at, and let me play this here. So as we're going through here, let's slow it down. I guess what I'll do is we'll let it play full speed for you so you can be familiar with the play, and then we'll break it down. This is the sack where they got to Fields but didn't actually get to put him down. So, okay. So then with that, let's scrub through the film and show you. First off, let's look at the get off. I don't see any direct issues here as you're looking through at that offensive line. No contact's really been made outside of Jenkins right now. I will say, if I'm going to be a little nitpicky, just a tiny bit, I do think that Jenkins is leaning just a tiny bit here and I've got it green for Packers. Let me change that color up. But you just see a little bit of a lean. Not a big deal. Not like the end of the world, but it's one thing where, traditionally speaking, that already says that I've got a little bit of a leverage problem where, and you'll see it here, I believe this is Kinlaw, actually shucks him off towards the end, does a nice swim move up and over, and then he gets through. So not ideal, but the one thing I've seen about Tevin Jenkins already is that I think that he does an incredible job about recovering when he's been beat. So not a big issue there. Jeremy, you're saying PFF credited Braxton with the sack, but I thought Jenkins was the reason Fields couldn't step up. What's funny is this is where I a little bit of a shout out, not that they pay me or anything, but Second City Gridiron, Windy City Gridiron's SB Nation's Chicago Bears page, their editor-in-chief, Lester Wiltfong, does a series every week called Sack Watch. I think he does an excellent job there trying to break down sacks. Sacks, to me, Jeremy, and I don't think I'm preaching anything new here, they are an incredibly, I guess you could say, complex thing to break down. I agree with you. I think Tevin Jenkins gets beat. So therefore, if it's a sack, shouldn't he get some credit for the sack? Yeah. At the same time, Braxton Jones does get beat. Should he get credited for the sack? Yes. At the same time, you watch somebody like JT O'Sullivan on QB School, and he'll tell you this ball needs to be out. So is it Justin Fields' fault? Here's the sad thing is it's all just a perspective thing. I tend to believe that on any sack, for the most, I shouldn't say any, you never use absolutes, nevers and always, but I tend to think most sacks, there's at least a tiny percentage there in the quarterback for maybe not being on time, not getting the ball out, understanding that if something's not open, get on your horse and start moving or throw it away. So context is important there, but let's just kind of go through it and look at what we have here. So scrubbing through a little more. Come on now. So scrubbing through here as we go through. 56. That is Samson Ebukam. And then, this is the point, Jeremy, is like, let's start here. We were talking about how Jenkins was leaned. Let's look at Jenkins here, where he's in a position that I like. Back is relatively flat. That's not a bad problem to have. This is good recovery. The issue is, as you'll see, is he's got his hands, and look, Kinlaw gets paid too. I want to be very clear about that. So it's not like I don't think Tevin Jenkins just whiffs on the block. But as we go through here, you can even see, and this isn't just a Tevin Jenkins thing. I actually think Braxton Jones is doing an okay job here trying to carry Ebukam past the arc. The problem is, though, let's look at this, and we don't know the field conditions. Well, we do know the field conditions. It was rainy and slick, so I don't even know how much of an easy ask it is to say Braxton needs to sit down and anchor, but those feet are right next to each other. And that creates an issue where how are you going to carry this man across the arc when you don't even have a base to kind of scoot or slide across, if that makes sense. So let's continue to go through this here and show you. So as we go through, and as I go through, this is the first moment we see. So let's show where Tevin gets broken down. So Tevin gets broken down right here, where what this comes from, and it's not even so much of a lean. It's just that inherently, this is part of the problem that when you're blocking, you have to have those hands out. And guess what? The other guy gets paid too. So when you have those hands out, don't be surprised if the other guy finds a way to chop it down. Now you have to lean with it. And now we get a nice arm over or a swim move, and that's what gets Kinlaw free here. So as you see here, let's show. I mean, Jenkins is now one arm out, one arm's defeated. He is turned this way. That allows Kinlaw to go up and over into Fields. It's not a great look for Jenkins. I'm not here to try and excuse it, but understand that, I mean, at this point, yes, there's multiple issues here. You're seeing Jenkins get beaten. I don't think that Braxton Jones is in a favorable position at the moment either. And so as we scroll around here, I mean, this just goes to show you. So, I mean, Jeremy, I like I said, I'm not here to disagree with you. I think this is bad too. You're saying that Fields couldn't step up. I mean, sure, maybe he could step up here and then try to escape out. I understand it. But also, I mean, let's look at Braxton here, where this is just not a winning business model. He's crossed and beat your face. Unless Braxton has just amazing power up top to just bench press him and throw him to the ground, you've got a situation where Justin Fields is looking at a real problem here, where he could potentially have the ball stripped. I mean, look at that. And then luckily he double clutches it and pulls it back in. But at this point, the play is over. And thankfully he feels the pressure. But I mean, to be clear, even this situation, this is what we talk about. If we want to sit here and not trying to necessarily do sack watch, but if we have a situation where I can assign blame, let me try to do that a bit. So I think that, yes, we're going to call it a -1 here for Braxton. You are putting your quarterback in danger of being stripped, but you didn't get him killed. This is where, I mean, I had a topic on Twitter. I was talking about Charles Leno, where, look, I'm not telling you he's the greatest blocker, but if you're not sitting there allowing your quarterback to just get destroyed play after play, I'm fine with it. I look at this like it's not the end of the world for Braxton here. To Tevin Jenkins, absolutely. He's beat. These two are your problems. Larry Borum's holding up fine. These two on the duo on Armstead is fine. But Justin, you have this. Maybe you have a defender back here. Fine. There's nobody out here. So go ahead and check it down or throw it away if you don't feel comfortable, rather than double clutch it and take the sack. That is someone, to be fair to Justin, I understand he likes to big game hunt, but that's a problem there. So let's see what you guys are talking about just a bit so that I can catch up here. Justin needs to trust his guys and show anticipate a little better. I think there's some of that, Corey, certainly. Tareen, you're saying first half he held the ball too long. Yeah, I mean, that's to me is an example of, yes, we can certainly blame the offensive line. The offensive line should be, an ironclad wall that never lets anything penetrate through. I get it. But at a certain point, help your offensive line out, get that ball out. What's 21 personnel made of? Yeah, I mean, 21 personnel looked awesome, and that was the touchdown that we're going to watch in a second here. Should have thrown the ball to one of his check. Yeah, Corey, that's where I'm at too. Like, just get the ball out. And Jeremy, you're saying here, Justin talked to Griffin after this play and seemed to tell him that he needed to turn around. So, yeah, I get it. And this is where, tomato. I think that you throw that ball out there, dirt it, throw it at his feet, throw it towards the sideline. I hope he turns around in time, loft it up. You're worried about a defender coming to it, then dirt it. This is the thing is, don't take the sack. Keep the offense on schedule. Don't take negative plays. And that is something that, at least in the preseason, I took a lot of solace in, feeling like when we watched this offense, as much as they weren't scoring points, there was a consistent effort to keep the offense on schedule, to make sure that you're not taking sacks, that you're not fumbling the ball, that you're at least trying to fight to get back to the line of scrimmage on runs. And just don't make stupid plays. That's a whole Hits philosophy. Look, play sensitive and smart football. So the smart football here is that if nobody's open, just dirt the ball. Unless you plan on running out and making a play. But at this point, I mean, admittedly, I forgot, does he actually try to run at some point? Yeah, if you want to call this a run, but at this point, nothing's open. He must feel Javon Kinlaw beating Tevin Jenkins. Dirt the ball, throw it at the feet. And at that point, it's too late, but that's the issue. Ralph, you're saying he drops back on his back. He drifts back on his back, drops, and he doesn't fall through. Yeah, I mean, look, this is the thing. There's always room to improve, but it's one play. That's Serena. She trusts this guy to make the play. Throw it with touch to give his head a chance. Okay. Yeah, that's where I'm at, Corey. All right. So then let's move on from there to, I think this was the first drive as well. So let's hop in here. And this is the interception. So we're looking at the all 22 angle here. And I love this play. Just I don't love it for us naturally, but it makes a lot of sense to me how something like this could have tricked Justin, all things considered. I guess I'll let it play for you a bit so you can see the angle here. But with that being said, I want to focus on one thing before we get started, because admittedly, as much as I've watched this, I've also been trying to watch Packers and Vikings tape and things like that. So there's some things I forget. I want to see how that offensive line holds up. So they mug the A-gaps there. And then, I mean, Mustafa's starting to get pushed back, but the reality is that you have a situation where Justin Fields is clean for the most part to throw it. So, okay. Let's kind of back this up and show you. So to me, this is where I'm a football fan. I'm a Bears fan, but I enjoy good football. So if you hear me kind of gushing a little bit about D'Amico Ryans and the culture and the way that they play defense, I'm sorry, but I do. I love it and I enjoy it. They're just fearless. So, I mean, coming out here on in the first drive and just trying to throw a little bit of an exotic look for Justin. So one thing that they're trying to do here is, can we try to muddy up this protection? Whether it's Justin calling it, whether it's Sam calling it, you guys are going to have to count for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7 people. And by all accounts, it looks like cover 1 with, I guess, sure, if you're counting it out, then I guess you have theoretically a total of 5 or 6 coming, but still, that's a tight box that you can ultimately run sim pressures off of. You can bring, let's say, for example, you want to bring the overhang and then drop 95 out here into the hook zone. You have to account for all of that, whether it be a replacement pressure or a sim. So in this case, as we kind of roll it through, as we roll it through a little bit, what you'll notice here, and this is what I love, let's really focus on Hufanga here, who is just an animal in this game. You'll see Hufanga starts low and in the box as an overhang defender out here, kind of to set the edge and cover any potential bubble screens, carry the flare route. Justin's IDing this. And by the time that he has to scan the rest of the defense, you can see his head is looking over here. That's when we start to see this right before the snap rotation, where Hufanga is going to drop out into what I call like a cover 3 buzz. The reason we call this cover 3 is you have your deep thirds. You're going to have your zone here. You're going to have your zone here. And you're going to have your zone here, with Hufanga ultimately trying to rob and take away any intermediate routes here. So we call this the buzzed position. That is essentially the defensive coverage. And as we look at this, let's watch and see. I mean, there you go. You see Hufanga now dropping into that kind of that mid-intermediate hole to try and rob routes. And then as we see the route distribution, you'll see a scenario here where, I mean, for the most part, we all know how this happens, I believe. But in some ways, this is Justin to a T. He has this if he wants to lead it out and then see if maybe Cole Kmet can beat up. But he's not that. He's a big game hunter. He doesn't want that. It's a little bit too dangerous to try to fit this in over the top, because this guy can jump up or fall back, crack the guy. Not a good throw to EQ in my opinion. So where he's looking to go, and I guess, yes, if you wanted to bang it out here, theoretically you're hoping that Pettis can win. But if you're talking about where he wants to go with it, he's trying to strike it all the way up over here and into this window right about here. And he doesn't see Hufanga because Hufanga is literally right behind this defender. Is it possible? I mean, nobody's going to know what Justin Fields was seeing. So theoretically, Justin Fields could have seen Hufanga, but I tend to think his eyes are looking over in this hole. It's peripheral vision. The way I've termed it is that Hufanga is essentially playing in Justin Fields' blind spot here. So you're seeing a scenario where he's not even picking up Hufunga's color before he throws it. And then Hufunga is able to kind of come here and jump the route before it even gets here. He's jumping it about here and then coming up. So let's play that through. And sure enough, there it is. So not exactly a wonderful play, not what I'd love to see. But I have to say, as much as it's an interception's an interception, just as a sack is a sack, I take a little bit more of an understanding or solace in the fact that, look, they get paid too. D'Amico Ryan's called I don't want to say it's super exotic, but look, you can see Hufunga dropping into the hole there. And then look, Justin Fields tries to look him off, starts looking over there, isn't going to catch the color. You can see the feet of Hufunga at the top of your screen. And then you get a scenario here where, boom, route gets robbed. Just a good play by them. And that is your interception. All right. And then let's get to this. We'll talk about, I'll pull up one that everybody likes to talk about. These are, again, this is just to do a little bit of film review about where the Bears were at, some of the plays that I thought they did a better job, that a little more pivotal plays, things that I think kind of made a difference in the game. Something, maybe things that I thought should have been, deployed a little more, things of that sort. Corey, you're saying it's a play where he could have used his legs to buy time. Yeah, sure. Edward, thanks for tuning in. So as we jump into this, let's let it play out and you can see it. This, I mean, for context, this is the one where Field scrambles and Tevin just completely detonates and demolishes Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa's engaged with Larry Borum, and then he becomes the lead blocker for Fields. I think the reality is, I mean, and I got to give credit to all the Bears community. There are so many good Bears content creators doing this work that if you're seeing it now, I would imagine you've probably seen it before through different outlets and people covering these plays, but still think it's valuable to kind of give you my perspective, seeing what I see on it, and we'll go through it. So like the little pre-snap motion here to get a big body commit out in the side, and obviously the intent is to throw it. Justin Fields just does such a wonderful job getting on his horse and using his legs to, create misdirection in the defense and then make a play. So as we wind that back, let's show it to you here. So as we go through, and I guess I can stop it there just a little bit because this is, it's I hate being critical about offensive linemen when I think that, look, the reality is some of it is you have to get those hands out there, but this straight arm, you're asking for Armstead to chop you at the elbow and beat you, which to be quite frank with you, I wasn't watching that part when we just rolled through it. I don't even know if he gets beat here, but the example here, what you're eventually going to see is, I guess, actually, as a matter of fact, I know what happens. This is where Mustipher takes over, and then Tevin starts looking for work and then just completely detonates Nick Bosa here. So let's go ahead and show you that. So this is where, and I got to give Tevin credit here because as much as I don't love that whole angle of keeping the arms out, what you end up getting here is this position where he's still holding. The term I like to use is like close the elevator doors, which sure, this is a little more space than I'd like, but he's about to pass it off. But he keeps enough of an inside shoulder here to where Armstead can't just scrape over the top of Mustipher. He has to essentially fight Jenkins and Mustipher here. So Jenkins holds up long enough for Mustipher to stay there and gather the block. And then ultimately Jenkins frees up. And as Nick Bosa does a little fake to come around and try to beat inside, Jenkins is right there to blow him up. All right. And so that's where we get there, where now they start the pass off. If I could ask for one thing out of Sam Mustipher, which is, it's not an easy ask, but I'm follow the Brandon Thorne's school of thought. If you're jumping, you get a free shot at those ribs, punch those ribs, and make them pay for it. Here is Tevin Jenkins going, oh, okay, Nick Bosa, you think that you're just going to come back inside? Well, I'm going to here, and I'm just going to boom you. So let's watch this. And I'll let it play for you in real time there. I mean, that's where he makes contact. And then at that point, I mean, good job by Larry too, just going, oh, thanks, Tevin, I'll take the help, and then I'm all over you, Pancake City. So as we move along here, you get to this position where Field starts scrambling. And it's funny because Tevin Jenkins kind of like, okay, job done, ball should be out, and then realizes, oh wait, no, I got to turn it and become a blocker, and still does a good enough job here. I mean, look at the athleticism. I understand it's not like he's going against a corner, but coming from a full stop and going, I think the play's done, the ball should be out, to then having to get back on your feet and your horse and catch up to Armstead, who's a good athlete in his own right, and get in front of him enough to create ultimately what becomes a little cutback lane here, where Fields is able to cut back on it and still get a few extra yards. Just an impressive play. To me, this just continues to solidify what I think I've been kind of championing the entire time, which is that to me, Tevin Jenkins is still the most athletic, best skill set offensive lineman that we have at the moment. Tevin Jenkins is very much coming into his own at guard. Okay, and then this is to me is one of my favorite plays of the game. It's not particularly special, but in this scenario, I think that to me this really it's got a few teaching points in it. It's to me is what makes Justin Fields so special, and what the Bears really need to do to challenge and create conflict and threaten the defense. On the other side, and Justin Fields is a smart kid, understood this and mentioned it in the post-game press conference. But this is a little bit of a teaching point on how defenses are starting to coach up their defenses to face these type of offenses. So we'll get into that here, but I'll let it play for you so you can kind of see it in real time, and then I'll come back to it. All right. And so I think I'm just kind of reading the comments here as I'm letting you guys watch it. J2K brings up here, I hope Jenkins plays the whole game. I hope so too, but I wouldn't. If Mustafa is still playing at center, I wouldn't count on it, to be quite frank. I tend to think that we'll still see a little bit of that. But yeah, so we'll come through here. Okay. You were saying, was that a missed assignment by Komet? Corey, expand for me, if you will. What are you referring to when you say a missed assignment? All right, I guess we'll get into Bono, you're saying yeah, Patrick's an honorary captain, so I guess we'll see. All right. So as we go through here, let's kind of show you. I mean, this is one thing I love, though, is that you're just continuing to sorry, Corey, you're saying the play I showed, did Komet miss the edge rusher? No, I mean, I don't think so. I think that was just a scenario where, or maybe you're talking about here where the D end comes down. Anyways, if you're talking about the previous play, no, I don't think the Komet did anything. That was just Tevin getting up there in the lead, and the play was broken. And this one, I understand what you're trying to say, and I mean, not particularly, because this is actually, yeah, Corey, you're saying this play. So I'll get into the teach tape. One thing I love to see is you're starting to see this pre-snap motion here at the top of the screen as it comes down. And you get in this position. So this is your question where you're saying, should Cole be essentially getting here and blocking this guy? No, this is actually becoming a very common thing. And let me kind of explain how it was ran originally a few years ago, and then how defenses have adapted to it. So this is the teach tape here. First thing, I love the pre-snap motion to bring Komet in. The whole thing, pre-snap motion is a little bit like window dressing, and it's something that I think it's very easy to say Matt Nagy was the king of pre-snap motion and throwing a lot of stuff on, but pre-snap motion is the idea of you're trying to ID the coverage, but you're also trying to create some misdirection and help the offense get a little bit of an advantage. So I think if you can spam some pre-snap motion and get people on the move and jet sweeps and things like that, it helps. So I like seeing Kmet being brought in here. The original teach tape on it was that Kmet and all these guys would down block. And then, of course, you'd have your routes on the backside and things like that. And what Justin would do is he would ultimately fake this run here and then boot out the back door. And this defensive lineman who ends up coming in and threatening Justin, typically in football, you were told to, if you have down blocks, you essentially spill and fill on the backside. You are trying to chase down this running back. And I'm sorry, I know that's a ton of drawing, so let me do that for you. If all these guys down block, you come down and you chase this running back down the line. That was the original teach tape. What has happened now that defenses are doing, and Justin Fields identified this, but this is the problem, and the good news is you have Ferrari Fields who can escape and get away from it. But I just want to touch on this because you have a lot of fans saying, well, we just need to boot Justin out more. We just need to roll him out and naked play actions and do all that waggle fun stuff. And look, I'm all about it. But this is the problem that you get into when you start doing that. Defensive coaches, what they're telling you now, you'll notice this is how pretty much any defensive coordinator in the NFL worth their salt is coaching it is. We would rather, if they're going to hand off to David Montgomery here, we trust our front side backers to fill the run. And even if it's a 3 to 4 yard gain, we will take that. What I don't want you doing is following through on that and then this quarterback getting out the back door for a big game because the only guy that's available, now in this case they have two DBs, but this guy's coming down to fill the run. So really it's one-on-one. The only guy that's accountable for Justin Fields is the safety. That's not a matchup I want. Justin Fields may shake the safety out of his shoes. So what they're now teaching these defensive linemen is forget the run, give them the 3 or 4 yards. Just in case it's play action, you always go for the quarterback first, no matter what. And that is what is happening now. So as much as we say, let's just have Justin roll out, understand that this is going to be part of the problem. Notice, you'll see that defensive end, not at all concerned with the run. I want to try to lock up the quarterback because if he's holding that ball, that's a much bigger loss that sets the offense back than giving up 3 or 4 yards. And so you're seeing here that this is what it becomes, where this is Justin Fields just being the athlete that he is and finding a way. What I love about this play and why I find it to be a pivotal moment is this is the moment that, to me, the game starts to really turn around. You're starting to see the speed create conflict, create a threat, start to open up more downfield passing plays. If we want to talk about a point of the game is that, to me, I think that, and this is why I love DeMeco Ryans, they're fearless. They're going to play 8-man in the box. They're going to man you up on the outside, and they're going to say, we dare you to beat us with your arm. We dare you. And we have a nasty set of front 7 players that will get after the quarterback if you do try to pass. And, oh, by the way, we can fit the run because we have 8 men in the box. Do something about it. And in this scenario, we got to see a situation where this extra threat of Justin Fields' legs start to open up more of the game. And so if I could see something in Green Bay, I'd like to see them allow Justin to get on his out on the outside, use his legs a little more. Even 1 or 2 design QB run plays. Good morning, Renewable and Rechargeable. I appreciate you tuning in. Okay, so as we come along here, you'll see Justin start to break loose. And I guess I'll let it play in real time as you saw it already, but let's look at how quick he accelerates here once he breaks this little tackle attempt. I mean, look how the defense is having to respond. Like, he's a rocket. I call him Ferrari Fields for a reason. Now, yes, he doesn't break it, and if I have to give a problem to anybody here, it's Kmet. I need Kmet to sit here and actually make a block, not run upfield. And I know, look, the whole thing is he's thinking, I want to get upfield because Justin Fields may throw me the ball. But at a certain point, understand who's your quarterback and that he's going to try to make a play with his legs. Come in here and wall off Hufungar, whoever this is, and see if I can have Justin Fields break a deep one. So that's the only problem, but still you get the same result. Look how fast Justin is here to sit through and break it. It's, to me, that is the type of play. And just let's scroll through here so you get the close action of it. It's a good job by Samson Ebukam trying to sit there and corral Justin Fields in the back. But, I mean, look at that speed. Just starts bursting down the field. It's, to me, this is the play that starts to open it up. Speaking about 8 men in the box, this is another play that I admit, it's funny, during the game I had tweeted that this is just, two good minds coming against each other. You had Kyle Shanahan, who obviously, as anybody knows, I respect a ton. He's the godfather of this scheme's son. And then you have Matt Eberflus, who's an acolyte of Dungy and Lovey and Monty Kiffin. But there was a play where Trey Lance had run a draw, and we were in this. When I say mugged backers, just so everybody knows, that means that you have two backers that are in the A gap, one on each side. There was a play that San Francisco was running. It was a QB draw, and the Bears had mugged A gaps where they brought both linebackers to simulate pressure, and they ended up dropping both. And then you had Trey Lance just kind of getting a free run up here for some yards, and I was like, oh, that's one of those, darn it, they got us. And it's funny enough here, I really like this play design by Luke Getsy because, to me, I mean, it's not a big deal, but look, it's a 3rd and 4. They've crowded the box. I mean, let's count it down here a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 6 men in the box. Yes, you have to obviously account that you have a safety here that can come down, and then 1 and 2. So you've got to worry about 6 threats. Somebody can come off hot if they're bringing it. And it's this situation here where I love it because they end up actually dropping both backers into hook zones. And this draw to Khalil Herbert ultimately gets blocked up really nice. Just a play that, like I said, pivotal stuff that I wish that would be deployed a little more. I also love this shift. So a little bit of a difference here. So motion is when you are motioning somebody across the ball and the ball is not snapped. In this case, a shift is when you're moving multiple bodies. So this shift here, you're getting this scenario where he's actually motioning both the tight end and the halfback out to in. And you'll see how that condenses the defense. I mean, golly, look how many they have there. And this is the problem that the Bears were sitting there trying to run into it all night. But in this case, I love the call. Because, well, one thing, can we please, if you're going to ask Kmet to not be a receiving threat, can we please have him just continue to sift block and use his big body to start blowing people up? So that's one of my favorite starts this play. You have Kmet coming across to block this D end, which then allows Braxton and these other offensive linemen to get downfield and create a lane for Herbert. And so as much as people want to say like Monty didn't have a lot of good plays, these are the plays that Herbert was explosive on, and I just think it's better scheme calls. So as we roll through the film here, you'll see immediately you have, just so we're talking about it, the reason they send Kmet across these is these defenders have to account for, is this guy on his slide route where he's just going to be out here for a pass? What is he moving? Is the run actually a counter where he's following him up and he's the lead blocker? All of that is the stuff that the defense has to process with Cole Kmet when you're sending him across the formation. And as you see here, I mean, there was some talk about early in the week that how would Tevin Jenkins fare against Eric Armstead. And I mean, he's in Eric Armstead's chest here doing the job. And then you have Borum kind of handling, they're trying to wall this out. And then now you're able to get Mustipher on a backer, which is, look, I know everybody's got a problem with Mustipher, but Mustipher's actually played a lot better this year, and him on any backer is a nice advantage. So you have this, I mean, you can already see the lane here that's opening up, and that's into what was a crowded box to start. So let's roll this out. Roll it nice and slow. And at this point, man, look, I mean, we talk about Sam Mustipher. That is Sam Mustipher doing it to the best off-ball linebacker in the game right there. And Tevin Jenkins has gotten a hold of Eric Armstead for just long enough. Borum on the same. Whitehair does a good job walling off. Braxton's got some traffic there. Look at Pettis even getting busy. And then you have Herbert busting up here. this to me is one of the best plays of the game as far as just concept, scheme, shifting the tight end and the halfback in late, trying to change the defensive look, see if we can get them out of sorts. And then because they had the mug days, but they backed them off, you get that extra second to get some push and get on the second level, as opposed to had they brought, let's just say, both at backers into that A gap, it probably doesn't work as well. But still, credit given where it's due. I think it's a good play. I'll scrub across here. And you're asking Hufanga, who was all over the play, all over every play that day to make a throw or make a tackle. I mean, just look how well it's blocked up. Where I'm not hoping to see Herbert all of a sudden score a touchdown there, but it's a good look. Okay, let's just see what we got going on here. You're saying Fields is wrong, not Komet. You're the QB though. I understand, Jeremy, but I think that in that scenario, Fields has got that incredible speed. Let him use it. Jeremy, that's how I see it 100%. Nobody was open on that play. Justin made the right move. Well, I love the back and forth about should he have thrown it, should he have not. You notice in the Vikings game, Ed Donatel peppered the A gaps and dropped one line. Yeah, it's Jeremy. We're going to go over what I just kind of those plays as well. But yes, Ed Donatel did a great job, and the Vikings are real. Let me just say that. I know a lot of people, it's the Vikings. No, I get it, but they're real this year. And it's just 1 week, but I'm telling you, just the way that team looked, assuming they stay healthy. Justin should be mobile on the slide. He's not built as a running. Yeah, I get you. I get you, Andy. It's a playmaker that plays. Mikey English brings up a good point here that I have to say. I tend to agree with this, though, is as much as Justin Fields is more RG3 than Josh Allen as far as their running ability and ability to take punishment and all that stuff. I think that Micah underscores a huge point here, which is that you have to have the ball in your playmaker's hands. And I know you're saying, yeah, to throw the ball, but inherently, too, some of that is running. He is definitively the most talented player on the field most times. And if you have an opportunity, the most athletic, the most talented, however you want to word it, if you have the opportunity to make him the focal point, the crux of your offense, beyond just throwing, because that's the thing, if you have this playmaker that's so dynamic, expand and multiply the way that he's used. Don't just sit here in this sense of having him just throw the ball. So that is essentially kind of my feeling. Edward, you're saying Bears by 3. I like the optimism. Yes, he was deep before. Okay. You're saying Jeremy from the end zone. Yeah, it's to me, like I said, we can sit here and do a whole 5-hour breakdown on the game that we watched, but I look at it like, let's get through some of the more crucial, pivotal plays that I think are worth noting because they worked. Maybe they didn't work, why certain things happen so that we all get a better understanding on it. But that to me is something that I'd like to see employed a little bit more. You can run that with Monty too, but I just like the pre-snap shift, bringing those guys in, changing the look. You saw how much the defense had to shift there. And Andy, you're saying, yeah, I agree, Andy. I don't know how durable he is either, but I also think you can get injured. People were grilling me about, talking about Charles Leno earlier this week, that he ended Fitzpatrick's career. And I'm like, Fitzpatrick was old, but anybody can give up a sack and you can tear your knee. I mean, God, Zach Wilson was running no contact and tore his meniscus and sprained his MCL or bone bruise or whatever it was. So it can happen to anybody. I don't think you should necessarily play overly cautious. I just think it's kind of par for the course. Okay. And then moving along here, as I know we're, what are we in, 45 minutes, and I'm just trying to work through these plays. But, okay. Let's go to kind of tease the one that I thought was one of my more favorite plays, but I'll wait for that one. This is the wheel route. This is one of the few plays that Justin got busy on. So I'll let it play for you. You're going to be watching Pringle down at the bottom of your screen in the slot. Just a nice play. considering, and yes, of course, like could he have let him in more and tried to have Pringle make a play, but understanding the situation, the elements, trying to hold on to that ball and throw it and get it in bounds and make sure it's a catchable ball. I really like that. I think it's exactly what it needs to be considering. Okay. So as we go through here, once again, you're seeing that pre-snap motion, just changing things up. I mean, that pre-snap motion directly drops Hufanga, just so you guys can see it, because as soon as he comes in here, the corner fills and replaces, and Hufanga drops. It's just an example of it. But as far as the play, I love the actual concept here, because you end up, I mean, this is the funny part too. When we talk about this offense and selling the play action, selling the run, watch EQ here as he actually fits up and makes it seem like it's a run and then releases back. Let's just focus on that for just a second. I mean, even then, theoretically, if you wanted to, you could have hit him there in a tight throw. But as far as on the actual play side, a little bit of a different thing here, and this is where I'm curious how much of this you're going to see with Luke Getsy versus Matt LaFleur. So in this scenario, what I find interesting is in the Green Bay offense, we went over it last week, just kind of talking about what it looked like when they were playing the 49ers. A classic staple of the Matt LaFleur offense is these little – it was a slot fade, and you traditionally have Pringle out here, Mooney out here. Mooney would run a little curl. Pringle would run this slot fade. And you're still getting the same exact idea. You're just doing it a little different, which you're bringing Pringle on this wheel route to kind of get that delayed outward action for the fade. And then, forgive me, as much as we just watched it, I need to see what does Mooney run? Oh, just a little crosser. Okay. So this is that situation where, and then you have Mooney coming across. You're hoping to draw this safety down so that he's not lurking back here, and then you get a one-on-one throw with Charvarius Ward, which is favorable to Justin because he feels like he can pin it on anybody. And so I like the concept here. And then let's just kind of show it off. So they go through here. Blocking's good up front. Oh, this is how could I forget without talking about this? You want to talk about a tight end doing some work. Let's look at Ryan Griffin here, who just completely pulls a snatch technique and pancakes his defender. Look at that. Just laying on him. So you love to see it. And then as we go through here, you can see Gibson here eyeing this outside. But let's watch and see how he's influenced as Mooney takes him out of it. And I mean, that's the difference there. Look at it. Like, I have to respond to this because I do not trust Warner to fall back on it. And if Mooney were to cut it right here, Hufanga can't make the play soon enough, and I'm over here. So it creates a situation where you have a millisecond before this, Gibson looking like he's going to be able to help Ward over the top here, and Mooney pulls him down. It's just that to me is the little intricacies about the scheme that help out. And at this point, you're winning because Ward is also checking back here, doing the right technique to see that, okay, I need to make sure that he is not doing a little double move and then releasing, and I'm trying to fall back on it. But in that, it allows Pringle to get in the blind spot of Ward and find an opening that Justin hits. So just a really nice play. Blocking's good. Ryan Griffin does a good job. And then, I mean, look at this here where because Ward is doing that peeking, he is, 10 to 12-ish yards away. I mean, you're here and the ball's here. What are we doing, Ward? And that is, yes, it's Justin. Yes, it's the blocking. Yes, it's the routes. But that to me is Getsy going to a staple of the Green Bay offense with that slot fade, but twisting it a little bit, running it in a condensed formation, doing the slot wheel, getting Mooney out there, and then having a guy like Justin Fields who's going to pin it on him. It's just, it doesn't get better than that. And you've got your backup tight end just destroying a defensive end there. Just a nice play. And if you run it from the end zone, he'll see the same thing. We get a little better look at I'll circle it here because you get to see it a little better. Focus on these two right here. And that's on Charles Omenihu, who is a guy I respect. And then as you play it here, come on, work with me, computer. Okay. As we see, it's blocked up there. You've got 2 blocks on 91. Whitehair's doing a good job on 90. And then, of course, Borm's handling his own. And you can see just the linebackers react to this little play action. They don't know where they're going. 57 Greenlaw tapers down. And then, I mean, let's just look. You have this scenario here where you can see Griffin's won his man, and then Justin Fields is just clean to deliver a nice throw. Also like that motion too. I don't mean to get into the motion too much, Justin Fields, but we're so used to seeing this whole like arm kink that it hangs under, and here it looks like it's nice straight. And I guess I'm trying to manipulate the camera here so you can see it, and then it's up and over. So nice play by him there. Okay, take a second to catch up with you guys here. I'm sorry, I know I'm trying to bounce from film to comments, but let's go through this. Edward, you're saying beat the 49ers again. Can you beat the Pack? We'll talk about it. Yes, Terrain kind of paying off the algorithm. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all that fun stuff. It helps out Aldo and the Barroom Network channel. And then Griffin was making that type of block. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. It's my hope here is that we can draw some light to guys that I think should be getting a little more credit, Jeremy. Than I understand it's the big touchdown play to EQ, and it's Dominic Robinson's 2 sacks, which are awesome. But let's show the little things as well that really kind of made the day for the Bears. All right. And so I think we are at the point where I'll show, I think I have 3 more here. I guess I'll go ahead and give you the one that I don't think anybody's talked about that to me matters a lot. So context is important here. This is the Bears that at this point, and it's the 4th, they've put a touchdown on the board. But something that they had been struggling with all day that was a real problem is that, and Cornelius, thanks for showing up. Welcome. Komet needs to be like that. He'd probably be a problem. Yeah, look, Corey, I actually think Komet does have some good blocks like that. I just haven't showed them to you here, and it didn't happen so much in this game. As anybody that knows, Cole Komet was actually told once that first sack happened, your job is to just support Larry Borum, Braxton Jones with any chip needs he has. You do whatever you can to make sure that we keep Justin upright. Ralph, you're saying, do I have faith that the Bears and Justin can drive 80 yards on the Packers for a touchdown drive? I do think it can happen. I think it's going to be a little more difficult than a lot of Bears fans assume, but we'll get to that. So context of the day here, just something to keep in mind is that the Bears at this point had been trying to run all day, not had a ton of success. 49ers were challenging them, putting 8 men in the box. And it became the situation, Foster, thanks for tuning in. It became the situation where what I was writing on Twitter at the time is, if you're going to try and say we have to run the ball to try and open up the pass, I'd rather you stop giving draws and little counters and little wide zones and find a way to create multiplicity. Try to find a way to open up your running game in other ways. And this is the only play of the game that was this. And it drives me crazy because to me, I think, look, if you need, I have done videos on Mooney in the past where I've shown his playmaking ability. Mooney's your best receiver. He got 1 or 2 catches in the game. It is your obligation to put the ball in your hands, in the hands of your best playmakers. And if the run game isn't working, then I would expect, and I'm hoping, I'm small fish. Luke Getsy's never going to hear this, but hopefully this, whether naturally or not, just matriculates up to where this stuff happens more. But I'll let you guys see the play, but this is a way to extend the running game, get the ball in your playmaker's hands, ask him to create yak, and not have to deal with that heavy box. And it happened 1 play in the game. Pre-snap motion with Komet. Little SIF block to create some misdirection. And it's a simple bubble screen. I know it's like, why was this play matter so much? It's 9 yards. But You've been struggling to run the ball all day. You look, I mean, so let's just show this is that pre-snap motion. Can we get Hufanga is actually carrying the vertical responsibility. Hufanga is out here, is carrying the vertical responsibility for Komet. As soon as he motions across, this is what I talk about IDing coverage. Let's go ahead and focus on Gibson and watch how Hufanga drops out. So let's show you this. Pre-snap motion, Hufanga drops. Gibson actually drops too. But in this scenario, I mean, look at even the linebackers. They have to respond to that. They start moving over to widen out here. And then the natural inclination, this is where some of it's the scheme too. Like, I see that Luke Getsy has it, so let's just do it a little more. I mean, in some ways, if you're going to throw the bubble, have Komet out here wall this off. And that's certainly a viable option. But they go for the misdirection route, which is we're going to play action here, fake this. This is a little bit of an RPO theoretically. You can run this up. And then we're going to sift Komet back here and hopefully get those linebackers flowing, which goes away from the bubble man here. Nice concept, and as we kind of run through it, you can see with the motion across, we snap the ball. And that's that. You can tuck it there and give it to Montgomery, and then you have just your typical inside zone duo play where you've got a lot of trash up here, and then Komet walls this off. But this is exactly why Justin pulls it back and says there's a lot of heat in this box. I'd rather throw it out to Mooney, who should theoretically be open here, considering that he's counted the protection right. Which, sure enough, as you do that, I mean, look at this. This is a nice play where it acts as a run, essentially. Get it out to your playmaker. There's your little halfback screen, halfback flare, something of that sort. It's a little play action RPO bubble to Mooney. And then again, let's give credit to EQ. I think this EQ is just doing a hell of a job. It's not. He's not, just pancaking the DB, but doing a good enough job here, putting hands on, I think it's Mosley is number 4. And then this is the power of Mooney. We're still fights through, strong runner, gets those yards. I know it seems like an insignificant play, but to me, this is the exact type of thing that I'd like to see them incorporate against the Packers, against other teams. When you feel like you're having trouble running the ball, because guess what? We've all talked about the Bears are going to be a team that runs the ball a lot. They're going to put training wheels on Justin Fields. We're going to make sure that, we run the ball and give him favorable matchups. Guess what? If we know that as fans, so do all the other teams. So if we know that the Bears are going to run, you need to find ways to extract those yards out of somewhere else. And to me, these RPOs, these bubble screens are great ways of doing that. End arounds. Because for a while, it seemed like this is what the Bears offense was. It was we're going to run wide zone, inside zone, duo, and we're going to run halfback screens. And maybe an occasional tight end screen. And the 49ers sniffed that out like no other. And so what do you go to? And I just, look, we won the game. I'm happy. But I saw a play here that, can you run this back to back to back to back to back? Probably not. But if you want to sit there and mix in an RPO bubble, and then maybe you're going to run wide zone, and then maybe you're going to boot into a play action rollout where Justin can use his feet or find a check down or find an alert like he did with the EQ play. There are ways to dial this up and pull the different levers. And I think that Getsy actually did a better job in the second half, but this is a play that I think gets overlooked far too often. And it's something that I would have liked to have seen them do. All right, 2 more plays before we get to Packers film. Let's go with I'm a defensive guy, so I'll go with the offensive touchdown first to EQ. Let it play real time for you so you can see it. All right. Let's go through some of your comments here. Cornelius was saying, please, somebody teach him how to wham block. Yeah, I mean, a little difference, Cornelius, between wham blocking and sift blocking. When you're asking him to run across the formation and wall off a defender, that is a sift. Wham is where you're motioning him, and before he even gets past the formation, he kind of becomes like a Y insert. That is a wham block where he's essentially kind of trapping that defender. which I'm a big fan of trap concepts and gap scheme, but also, got to see that as an option in this offense. We see a lot of zone naturally. Didn't see any gap schemes. Jeremy saying also, I really like how he moves out of the pocket to pass the ball instead of just run. Gotcha. And Foster, you're saying if you're the Bears, you attack that secondary this weekend. I'm not sure I would, but we'll talk about it. You're curious how Getsy calls this next game. They know what he likes. Yeah, it certainly is going to be. I think that's a very good talking point and storyline, Jeremy. Ravi, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. He had Miami. Oh, I didn't even know. I guess I did know Miami's playing Texas A&M. Okay. Going through this again. This is just this is a beautiful play. Let's be clear about it and not mince our words. This is just to give you an idea. I love so much about this play. Jordan, thanks for showing up. This is a play I love so much because it's a scenario where, as you're watching this, they had been, somebody had mentioned earlier that when they got in 21 personnel, good things started to happen. They had a couple plays, I believe, of 21 personnel, but this was the first one of its time. And as I'm watching this real time, you can really see they are selling this run like nobody's business. And as much as I was harsh about the Bears running the ball so, unproductively early on or inefficiently in the game, this is one of those scenarios where I couldn't help but see it and go, finally, Luke Getsy pays it off. Hey, Bears roster fans, everybody watching, I know you had to deal with 30 shitty-ass runs, but it all pays off in this one moment where we are going to put 21 personnel in. You're going to have, I don't even see Komet's not even out there. It's Griffin here, Blasingame here. Mooney's out of the play. You have EQ and Pringle. And just look how you sell this essentially, where you end up motioning Pringle in. And then he even starts doing this wonderful little pointing action, which is like, hey, I'm getting him just so you know, EQ, so that you can go out and get him. And then the defense is looking at, look at Fred Warner's playing. Like, look at that stance. He's ready to explode. And you've got this single high safety. This is run defense wanting to stop any run. They are responding to exactly what the Bears are selling. And you have this scenario where with this condensed formation and this motion, then you roll the play. Just watch how the defense responds to it. It's chase and pursuit immediately. Like we talk about, hey, this guy out here should really be flying in here just to take care of Justin if he were to roll out. Watch Mosley carry it across. Mosley is actually here, number 4. He does hesitate just a tiny bit, but in this case, it ends up going to there. And then let's look at it's funny because, and even the play action, one thing I don't know, I'm getting a little nerdy here. I apologize, but it's the stuff I enjoy. I love that the Bears, you get a lot of play action these days, which are, yes, you get the whole naked rollout boot. I love an offense that also says, Justin, do you feel comfortable turning your back around in a standard play action manner? We're not going to boot you out or anything. And this is an example that, I'll give you an example. Joe Burrow is a guy that, for whatever reason, they are unwilling to run play action in a traditional way, 5-7-step drops, because he doesn't trust his offensive line. The Bears' offensive line is nothing great, but you still have Justin willing to turn his back around and do traditional play action. And so you see it here where you're able to, you see it here where you're able to essentially get the defense off. Or look at this. You literally have 3 guys on Blasingame. That is how much they think, oh, this is a run, and then we're just covering the nearest 1st to 4th defender. And, oh, by the way, it's a check down, so Justin's for sure going to hit it. And they obviously don't understand that Justin is a big play hunter. So you get into this situation. I love when my pen doesn't want to play nice. Okay. You get in a situation here where just look at the concept. We've sold run. They're biting on everything. You have defenders all off in the distance here trying to cover this. Then they realize, oh, crap, here's Griffin. We ought to run to him. It's certainly Justin's going to be here looking at these guys, right? And at this point, and I got to back it up just a little because I know this part's been talked about by a few other people, but in case you missed it, you have this situation here where because this is zone, in addition to all the mess going on over here and two guys on here, Hufanga has to decide, and this is the beauty of the concept, and I know that at this point Justin's already reared up and is going over the top. But at this point, Hufanga has to decide, am I going to fly to this? But if I fly to this, he's going to hit Pringle down here. But if I go to Pringle, then I have nobody carrying the vertical responsibility. Fine, I'll try to take this, but he stutters long enough that even by the time he goes over to match EQ here, it is far too late. And then Justin leads a perfect ball where it's up and above where anybody could get it and ahead of his receiver. And so let's watch this in real time. There's the stutter right there. Now he responds and chooses, but it's far too late. And the ball's on the money. And I love that too, because this is one of those situations where, I mean, Hufanga had an amazing game. And I love it because this is some of those things where, fine, you can have an amazing game, but we're going to make you pay for it. And this is an example where they made him pay for it. And they did this with a few other, like, Nick Bosa was quite a menace. And then Tevin Jenkins just has a play where he kind of owns him and stands over him and goes, like, not anymore. It's just Justin Fields kind of felt oppressed in the first half. Well, now we're going to boot you out, and I'm going to make, Samson Ebukam miss, and I'm going to explode down the hole. There's little things where they're making guys pay. And so here's that from the end zone angle. You love it where, look at how much they sell this run. Just a little fun thing. Go ahead and watch Lucas Patrick here. Just watch him throughout the play. Just a funny little thing. Even as we see it here, I know you get the closed copy where you don't get to see the all 22, but also focus on the safety, Hufanga. Right here, it's literally right here. He does this whole little foot shuffle. Do I stay? Do I go? What do I do? What do I do? And in that, it leads to the touchdown. And then you get Lucas Patrick having a good old time. So, okay. So, look at this is the field of dreams. Like, holy crap, did Justin just do that? Wow. Whoa. Everybody's just having a good old time. Okay. Let me get the next final play going, and then we will get to questions before we jump into Packer stuff, which the final one, I think you know where we're going. Wouldn't quite be it without it. This is where, Cornelius, you're saying that touchdown to EQ on 3rd and 2. Yeah, it's because that's the thing too is on 3rd and 2 they're expecting to see that run play. So of course they're going to sit there and sell out on the run to stop it because they've been seeing it all day. That was one of the frustrating points of the game is that it seemed like even when it was 3rd and 8, the Bears were like, no, we're just going to run it, and it's like, come on, try. But this is the whole point of if you're going to create that illusion for a whole game, this is the opportunity to make it pay off, and you got to give Getsy and the offense credit for that. They did. Robbie, you're saying you like Pettis. Yeah, Pettis is also a Pettis second-round pick out of Washington. You don't get that pedigree for nothing. I just think he's had a tough go early on in his career. Bear Truth, you loved all the runs because you created an identity. Yes, that's exactly. As far as you're saying, so if you're Green Bay going into this game, you have to respect. We'll see. I think that they're going to try to play a little bit of 49ers ball and challenge them and say, beat us with your arm. But if Justin Fields can ultimately capitalize on that, you may be able to see some fireworks. You say you think EQ and Pettis have a good game? Certainly. I hope to see Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney and Byron Pringle get a little more play. But yeah, we'll see. Cornelius, you're saying the O-line maybe had jitters. Bono, you're saying Fields did a good job looking off. Yeah, it was 100% that little, that little stutter step. Bojack gonna lead the league in picks this year. I hope. Or you said it. I said league. You said team. Team's probably more realistic. I said league. Ravi, you're saying going to need to upgrade the defensive tackle. So let's jump into this here. Okay. So then this is the interception. I wanted to talk about this because I should have captured the all 22 for it, but I didn't because I just thought that this was enough to show you. The long and short of it is that this is just cover one. Cover one means that you're playing man-to-man with your tight ends, your corners out here, and then you have one safety that buzzes down while the other takes the deep half. Now, somebody was saying, it was Ravi was saying Jackson, let me back here, that Jackson fits better in this scheme. I don't know if it's necessary that he fits better in the scheme because Chuck Pagano ran a lot of cover 1-2 and cover 3 and single high stuff where theoretically a rangy guy that's not great at tackling would be better playing the deep half, the midfield or the single high. But in this scenario, what I love about this, and Robbie, to your point, I think this is what really kind of opens it up, is that this guy right here, Jaquan Brisker. I mean, at this point, I hope that you all know how much I enjoy and love what I saw from Jaquan. I think that I was very high on him when he got drafted, but it's his versatility. I love Eddie, but the reality is Eddie does not. Now I got to give Eddie credit. I think he fit the run better than any other time I've really seen. At least there was a willingness. I know he got blown up by Debo in the end zone and things like that, but tackling has never been Eddie's game. It's just not. He's not very physical. He's better as a coverage safety, and it's fine. But the reality, when I'm looking at him, there's a definitive weak spot in his game. And I'm not telling you that Brisker's a better safety today, but the one thing is, when I look at Brisker, he is just as comfortable going back as he is going forward. He fits the ball well. He's got ball skills. He tackles. He punches out. I mean, he's around the ball, trying to force fumbles. He's picking up fumbles. That guy right there is what allows Eddie Jackson to be maximized more than I just think the scheme. And so in this scenario, you have cover one. This is where typically with Tashawn Gibson or any of these other guys, they would have to force Eddie to be the guy to go back because he's got range while Gibson didn't. Brisker's got plenty of range, so they trust him to go back here and then bring Eddie down. That is essentially what goes on here, so that when you're viewing it, you'll see, and so it's cover one, everybody's playing man. But with Jackson here, he buzzes down. So this is a cover one robber, essentially, where he's looking to rob these. And I think I do incorporate the all-22 at the second half here. Maybe I don't. But in this scenario, this is a little option route. And this is, it's not a total Kyle Shanahan new thing, but essentially what they like to do is they like to have one guy breaking out while the other one breaks in. And in this scenario, you end up seeing, Jackson talked about this in the post-game presser at his locker, that they like to run this little option route where one goes out, one goes in. And he ends up baiting it where he looks like he's playing this middle hole here. And again, he's kind of playing in the blind spot of Trey Lance. And Trey Lance thinks he can just wing it in here and underestimates, one, he doesn't totally account for Eddie. Two, he underestimates Eddie's range to be able to come in here and scoop it. And so this is just masterful work by Eddie Jackson. Golly, you want to talk like this is cover one robber. There's never been a better definition of what it is to rob a route than right here. It's right on the money for, I believe it's Ross Dwelly there. And Eddie Jackson finds a way to low point the ball, snag it, and then it's not even just like, okay, I got the interception. He's looking to run and make a play off of it. Yeah, and then it's Jawan Jennings. Here in real time, let's look at that work. Golly. Just sweet. It's just, I love it. To me, we talked about the first play kind of opening up the game, which was the field scramble where he's creating conflict with his legs. To me, this was the final play to kind of really nail it in. Like, we have you can't do anything to us anymore. This was, again, making those guys pay. If you're going to have this scenario where you have certain players, Hufanga making plays, or, Dwelle getting open or anything like that, Trey Lance, and we're going to come back and make you pay for that. Nothing free, nothing easy, nothing cheap. So that was just excellent. Okay. We'll start with the funny because it's a Green Bay game, so let's start with that. But before I get into this, let me catch up to where you guys are at in the comments. Bears, that's one thing, Robbie, I didn't even touch on, but yes, the Bears were definitely rotating their offensive line. They were doing that too, but their defensive line in waves, which I think really kept guys like Robert Quinn fresh in the fourth quarter and Dominic Robinson to get some opportunities. Corey, you're saying we'll have to come down. Yeah, that's the goal. But even there, they were able to bring him down into the box per se. It wasn't even into the box, but it was just, hey, can you rob this route? Where typically he would have to be back, and quarterbacks would just not even play him there. They would just give it to him, give him the win. We'll take the intermediate routes, not take the deep ones. Okay. Robbie, you're saying Weatherford. I like Weatherford a lot too. I think that we'll see. He's definitely a special teams player, ace at the moment, and we'll see if he develops a role. Bought his jersey, then he changes. That sucks, Corey. It's more with nameplates, so I guess it wouldn't work. But there was I don't even know it, but there's a service or definitely a vendor, and I saw him on Twitter at one point where they will take your jerseys. And I think they were only doing it with nameplates. But, let's say Eddie Jackson was 39, and then he was traded. Khalil Mack, 52, traded. And then the new guy, let's just say they draft a first-round linebacker, and he picks 52. You can send them your Mack jersey, and they'll, take the Mack off and put the nameplate. And it looks good and official. But I don't remember who they are or what their name is. You're saying better than Mike or Will? Maybe. Jordan is the Brisker fan president. Yes, Eric. Everybody where's my man Skokes? Skokes is usually in here talking about he's the Braxton Jones president. I give it to him. I will certainly say I don't get to say I win much, but if there's an area that I particularly win in, it's this is the one thing I want to take claim to. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody was as hype about Jaquan Brisker as I was. I have live video of during the draft when he was announced. Everybody was like, a safety. Not I. I loved him. Thought he was a great player out of Penn State. Joe, you're saying if you think our D can get to Rodgers and frustrate. Yeah, I'm gonna show you everything I went through this film of Green Bay and Minnesota 3 times just to make sure I felt like I really understood everything that was going on. So let's get into that. I'll let this play so you can kind of see it, and then we'll go from there. This is the first play of the Green Bay game. Oopsies. I'm sorry. I'm a Bears fan. I like football and I like the NFL, but I'm certainly going to laugh when the first play of the game should be a touchdown for Green Bay, and it just spells a horrible game after this. Nice double move to beat Patrick Peterson, and whoopsies. I actually think Christian Watson will be a very good player, and that as a first play of his NFL career is fantastic with his speed and how to get in on people. But that right there is an example of why. And look, I wanted the Bears to draft a wide receiver in the second round. But this is an example of just because you draft them in the second round doesn't mean that they're going to all of a sudden fix all your problems. And I think, look, Corey's saying and Ravi's saying best film clip. Corey's saying those drops are going to be an issue. The problem is, Corey, those drops were existent in North Dakota. When he was playing at NDSU, he had 6 drops. He has drop issues. He's got to shore up those hands. But don't get it wrong. That is something that should have theoretically get fixed. And I certainly want the Bears to take credence and heed to that, because Patrick Peterson is older and he is slower, but he is a guy that is one of the most athletic corners that has entered the league in years. He's actually a guy that athletically I comped Kyler Gordon to. And yes, he's older and slower now, but it's not even so much of an issue of keeping up. There's a great ability there to create a double move, show him one thing, and then beat him on the outside there. Taurine saying, amazing speed. Yeah, that's what we're talking about is if we want to talk about keys for the Bears to win this game, you have to take care of Christian Watson, because Watson here is just a menace. Let's show you. So we'll zoom through it just again so you can see it. It's a relatively basic concept, but I mean, this is, if you can take anything, watch how similar this offense is. Just, you have Tanyan motioning across the formation, trying to just change things up a little bit. You get just a standard 7-step drop, and then you have this situation where, look, the offensive line's blocking it pretty well. Nice little pocket for Aaron Rodgers to throw in. And, I mean, that's a touchdown on the very first play of their game on offense, if he catches it. And so, I mean, as we go through it here, just so you get familiar with the personnel. Oops, excuse me. This is Sammy Watkins. This is Christian Watson. The only other guys you're really going to see would be 18, which is Cobb, and 87, which is Dobbs. Yes, my scribbling is gibberish. But in this case here, I mean, this is just your standard 11 person. Is it 11 personnel? No, it's not. They have, this is 12 personnel. Now, this is what we call like YY hip, where they have two tight ends over here. They like to do this a lot, and they'll bring the tight end over to make it just traditional 12 personnel. Okay, so as we roll it through, you can see, at least on defense, they're not doing anything too crazy. I mean, they're sending a blitz with having 5 defenders, but it's nothing too wild. And this, for context, so you're aware, and if chat wants to help me out, I don't know if Bakhtiari or Jenkins are playing, or any of the other players that were hurt. But in this case, for this game, this is Josh Nyman, who's actually, I like him quite a bit. And then they actually had Royce Newman here, who's traditionally their right guard, playing tackle. So they're playing with 2 backup tackles. And yes, it gets worse throughout the game. But look at this offensive line here, where they do a fine job holding it up for Rodgers to deliver a deep shot. As far as the actual route concept, it's traditional 12 personnel where they actually have 7-man protection. Both tight ends are staying in the block. And then you have Aaron Jones running this little option route here, a little escape route from, is that Watkins? Or not Watkins. Sammy Watkins. Oh, no, that's Mercedes Lewis, who creeps out at the end there. And so then as we show it back, well, I can't play this and not kind of point out one final thing to you. What I love about this so much is watch Aaron Rodgers' face. So I know you guys can't pick this up on the TV copy. So one, he's disappointed. But this is him actually looking over. This moment right here is him. Let me get this right with the color and everything, guys. Let's do this the right way. This is him with laser eyes, looking right over at Matt LaFleur. And the best part is, so it's not just I'm disappointed and I look over. This is Karen Rodgers sitting here going, like, just a little look over, like, told you so. Told you should have got me a better. Yeah, I mean, look at this. It's just wonderful. Yep, told you. Robbie said Rodgers a condescending prick. Yes. I mean, this is a scenario where, you want to talk about keys for the Bears defense. Kyler Gordon got burnt early. Not early, but got burnt from the nickel position last game. This is a touchdown if Gordon or Jalen Johnson don't play this correct. So what you have here is you have Peterson playing inside leverage. The reason for this is if this is anything in breaking or even vertical, he wants to funnel this to Harrison Smith, who they call Harry. Now, what doesn't work here is that as we roll through the tape here, there's this little double move which gets Peterson all out of sorts because he was playing outside leverage. He thinks that, okay, I'm just going to bite in here and see if I can rob this. And then Watson just cuts it up outside. And then watch the speed. Yeah, like, you got Peterson almost falling over. So it's not a good look. You can see I love it too. Like when you go through it, you would see look at all these Green Bay players on the side. Look at him throwing up the arms. The mailbox is 29. That is Rasul Douglas. Oh my gosh, touchdown! Touchdown! Oh, look, everybody's throwing up their arms. Oh my goodness, touchdown! I love it. I love it. Okay. Going to, this will just show you a little bit of their offense. But let me get back to the chat here. J2K, you're saying, really like how Ed Donatel, for those not familiar, is the Vikings defensive coordinator. He is part of the Fangio tree. He was the linebackers coach, Jeremy, if I'm correct, with Chicago when Fangio was here. Coverage shell mixed up which four rush to QB. Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, that's absolutely kind of what happened here, Jeremy. Okay. You were saying, Ravi, that they upgraded their staff. Yeah, I was a big Zimmer fan, but I certainly think the thing with these coaches, sometimes it's not the coach, it's time to change. Zimmer had run its course in Minnesota, and I was skeptical about what they were doing. Because, look, the thing is nobody wants to talk about is when you're typically transitioning defensive schemes from 3-4 to 4-3, odd to even fronts, middle of the field closed, middle of the field open, just different core principles. Traditionally speaking, you aren't able to get that full transition done in one off season. I think I'll give you a good example. One, the LA Chargers last year went from a 4-3 defense with Gus Bradley to a 3-4 with Brandon Staley. And their run defense was awful because they just didn't have the personnel in one off season to fix it. Number two here, it's one game in, I understand, but I tend to think this is going to be a problem throughout the year. The Las Vegas Raiders went from a 4-3 with Gus Bradley, funny enough, to a 3-4 with gosh, what is his name? Patrick. Gosh, it's going to kill me. Former Giants defensive coordinator, was down in Miami. Anyways, defensive coordinator that runs a 3-4 odd front. And you're trying to now ask guys like Max Crosby, who have had their hand in the dirt, to drop and things of that sort. I tend to think that you have problems asking to change this up so much. And in this scenario, you start to see, I was very skeptical about Minnesota and their ability to change it. And at least in one game, they look to be handling this 3-4 defense just fine, which is the total opposite of what Zimmer was running. Kenny's saying, imagine if their $50 million QB spent any additional time. Jeremy, Rodgers started missing all sorts of open receivers. Yeah, Jeremy, you're hitting on a bigger point to me that was a real big issue, is that as the game went on, it felt like Rodgers lost all confidence in his receiving core. And then, surprisingly enough, you don't usually see this out of Aaron Rodgers. He just kind of short-circuited. I don't traditionally feel like I've seen Aaron Rodgers make poor decisions. And it felt like one after another, there was just poor decision after poor decision. And because of that lack of confidence, he started to get gun-shy and checking the ball down quite a bit. Okay. Corey, you're saying you think they have 4 questionable. Yeah, and I got to tell you, I tend to think that they just went 0-1 in the division. I don't think that they're looking to go 0-2 in the division. So I tend to think any of those questionable players, I would bet they're going to be playing. Let's see, going through your stuff here. I love this by Ravi. Yes, just that look over it at the sideline, like I told you should have got me George Pickett's. Okay. And Joker, you're from Compton, California. I'm living in Aliso Viejo, Orange County, California. So welcome. Appreciate you coming on and joining the chat. Corey, how you dropped that with those gloves? Yeah. Lobster claws for hands. I don't want to be hard on the kid. I think that everybody has bad plays. But yes, it's an awful, awful first look. This is not the same as their loss to the Saints. No Adams to adjust to the. Yeah, I hope you're right, Kenny. We'll talk about it as we get into Q&A after these film clips. But yeah, Karen was effing enraged. Okay. I agree with you here, Corey, and the rest. I mean, yes, this game. It's not just this game though. It's any Bears game. I tend to get really salty if they lose, but that's okay. Okay. So, let's go back to the film. And Cliff, thanks for joining. Okay, a little bit of a break there, but let's go into it. This is. I need my little notes. The Tanyan screen. Oh yes, I don't. in some ways, yes, I wish Getsy would run some of these, but I just wanted to show you Bears fans kind of the things that they do that I was pretty impressed with as far as just like some of the scheme. This is just a tight end screen to Robert Tanyan, who's right there. But let's just look how they get into it. So starting out, they have Aaron Jones out here. They're going to motion him back in. And then they're going to actually bring him on this little orbit over here. And it totally looks like a pre-designed screen where let's have these guys block it out. And then Aaron Jones, who's a great receiving back, is electric enough and dynamic to hit it over here. And I love this because in many ways, they can do that. But what you don't expect out of it is this next part, which is when they do this set hut. I mean, you'll see it here where Tanyan does a little chip and then turns right around here for a screen. Really nice play design. Now, of course, as I play it in real speed, you'll see it doesn't work because the offensive line and the pressure is done so well by a Donatel, and it gets batted down by Daniil Hunter. But, yeah. So that is just a play, in my opinion, that it's another small one you don't really get much from. But these are the things that if you're watching, I hope that you'll glean is I like to pull out the little nuggets of, yeah, it was an incompletion. Nobody doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Nobody's really going to care about it. But to me, at least, I view that and go, that's a very tricky, nice little play where you get the linebackers flying enough to Aaron Jones. Tanyan's on the backside, and that's a nice big gain for you. So Matt LaFleur dialing it up a little bit. Okay. And then this is the second drive, the third play of Green Bay. I wanted to show this because this is them. If I can give you kind of like one thing I felt like about this game, I guess let me give you as making a little bit of a joke here as we've got Cliff Victoria in the chat. I'll give you my Cliff notes. With Green Bay, lots of pre-snap motion with the running backs on return motions, as you saw there, where they start them out, returning them into the backfield. In the second half, they started to have more split backs where they would bring A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones in together. To me, that is the key. I'm telling you, as we're Bears fans, but if the Packers want to win, something I don't think they did enough that they really, really need to is to put the ball through Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon's hands. It's not that Aaron Rodgers is awesome. I'm not telling you that like he's a bad player, but the wide receiver room needs to grow and grow. And you don't want to have to rely on that while you're trying to win games. So put the ball in your running back's hands and let them work. And that is what started to happen in the second half. But frankly, it was too late by that point. It was 17-0 before they started to put the right plan together. And so they started using more split backs in the second half. This is the other issue with that, though, is they started to use more split backs. They started really going to A.J. Dillon instead of Aaron Jones. And that's not a problem, but I think it should be more split. Like Aaron Jones got hardly any run in the second half. And let's be clear, when you're down 17-0, A.J. Dillon is great at busting you down, busting you up, breaking down the door. But Aaron Jones is dynamic, so fast. I want the ball in Aaron Jones's hands, and for whatever reason, that part never happened in the second half. And then just as far as formationally, there was a lot of 11 and 12 personnel, 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and then 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, 1 running back. And then they did spritz in a little bit of 21 personnel with Josiah DeGuara, Cincinnati, kind of an F tight end, fullback player. And then what they would do with him is, and I'll show you this in some of the plays, I believe I have it in here, but DeGuara would essentially motion as the F tight end or fullback, and they would just kind of motion him to then insert him or have him as a lead back for A.J. Dillon to bust up the middle of that line. Why they do this, and doesn't totally matter so much for the Bears because they're not playing this front, but the whole idea is, and I tell you this because, yes, it's about the Vikings, but take this for what it is because it's exactly the same with the Packers. They run the Fangio scheme. That is 2 high safeties, middle of the field open, odd front, usually conceding a one-man disadvantage in the box. So how do you take advantage of that? You beat them up with A.J. Dillon. So that's what they would do there. And then this is kind of, Jeremy, what we were talking about. There was a lot of checkdowns. And this is something I felt like I've had an issue with Aaron Rodgers over the last few years, is that I see a guy that it's not that he lacks killer instinct. He can still make all the throws. but it almost feels like he's always. I'll give you a good example. Derek Carr was often called the check down king, and I think for a while it was true. Derek Carr to me is now a guy that plays the game consistently like he's looking at math problems, where he's almost like he's out there reading the defense and going, I have a 68% chance of completing that if I throw it to Derek Waller on the safety, and a 33% chance if I throw it to Henry Renfrow. I'm going to throw it to Darren Waller because that's the higher percentage chance of success. That is what has allowed Derek Carr to become less of a check down guy and take better opportunities and take shots. In this game and a few others, the loss to San Francisco in the playoffs, it feels like Aaron Rodgers is now all of a sudden trying to take, and Tureen says it perfectly here, trying to play perfect football. Take the absolutely safe right chance. And that's not a bad thing. It wins you a lot of games, MVPs, 13-3. But what it doesn't do is that when it gets tough and times get hard, and you're going bat to bat with Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, those guys take chances and they throw pick sixes, and they also throw amazing creative plays where they're scrambling on 4th and 3 and with cracked ribs and, throwing all of those amazing things happen that it feels like Rodgers is not doing so much. So in this game, there was a lot of checkdowns when I'm going, you're down 17-0. Try, make a play. And I guess in some ways he got snake bitten earlier where right before the half he threw an interception to Harrison Smith, which I don't know if I captured that one, but it's just an example of everything with this Green Bay team in week 1 seemed out of sorts. They were injured. Quarterback wasn't making right decisions. Receivers were dropping balls. The reason I have this play up, and we haven't even talked about it, is that I have it listed here in my notes. This is the second drive, play 3, where they're coming off of a timeout because of bad clock management. They literally had to burn a timeout 4 minutes in with 4 minutes left into the first quarter because they didn't have the right play in time. And I just want to show you how they responded to that. But this is just an example of they were just completely out of it. As I kind of go through the chat here. Jan, thanks so much for tuning in. Bear down. I want to catch up because otherwise I feel like I fall behind way too much, and we'll just kind of keep going through the plays from there. Jeremy, you're saying Aaron Rodgers looked really good in this game. He's got great. Yeah, no, Aaron Jones looked phenomenal. Like really, really, really dynamic, which is what I'm saying. If the Packers put the hands put their ball in the hands of their right playmakers against the Bears, I would worry for the Bears, which is it's Aaron Jones and it's A.J. Dillon, and then an occasional shot play to Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs or a screen. But don't put the game on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders. Have the running backs beat up the defense and then ask Aaron to make a few throws a game since he wants to play such perfect, safe football. Okay. Joe was saying, how do our linebackers match up to their running backs? Pretty good, actually. I would tell you. So one running back is I don't think our running backs it's not that when I say they're not equipped, they will make the tackle, but just understand that they're going to be in a losing business model with our linebackers trying to tackle A.J. Dillon. As far as Aaron Jones, though, that's the one thing is Roquan Smith and Nick Morrow are absolutely fast enough to keep up with Aaron Jones, and they should be able to make a play in space. But as far as the, battering ram that is A.J. Dillon, no, I would worry a little bit about that, Joe. Robbie, you're saying wide receiver runs wrong route pick. Yeah, it's that's exactly what it is. Jeremy, another thing you noticed was that after Rodgers lost faith, as I'm catching up here, it's exactly what I was going through in my notes here. And then Dieter officially activated. Okay. Jordan, you're saying Aaron Jones looks faster. I don't know if he looks faster. He just looks dynamic. I was really hoping we'd see. Yeah, it's probably just gonna be another game of Tevin and Patrick swapping out. This could easily be a lower scoring. Yeah, we'll see, Cliff. I'll give my score prediction and everything at the end, but I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I'll just say that. What's odd about this game is that Cobb and Watkins didn't see it. Well, the thing is, Jeremy, I don't know if I think Watkins would get a lot. Watkins has kind of been I don't want to say a bust, but an underwhelming first-round pick who's been a journeyman. Cobb, on the other hand, I would have expected to get a lot of balls, but Cobb is also I don't want to say he's breaking down, but he's not some exceptional talent anymore. He's an older player. So, yeah, I certainly agree. I think Rodgers would tend to go to him more. But when you're down, I don't know if I need 7 to 8 yard completions. I'm looking for big plays. But this is why I'm saying this whole game is so disjointed, because you would expect, okay, take the big shot, but then he doesn't take the big shot. Okay, well, then go to the reliable receiver. No, he'd rather check it down. It just didn't make any sense. Okay. Let's see. Coming through the chat here. Bottom line, their offensive wide receiver core is much more suspect than... Yeah, I think that the way I would put it, Bear, is that I think their wide receiver core has more talent overall, and I know that's going to make Bears fans mad. That's not what I'm not trying to incite frustration. I just mean that Christian Watson, if he were to hit his potential, is a scary, scary player. And Romeo Doubs, I know probably not a lot of you knew him going back to his time at Nevada, but was a very, very solid receiver. And sure, Sammy Watkins is maybe nothing special, but he's still decent. And Randall Cobb's decent. And, then you have Alan Lazard, who wasn't playing this game. And Alan Lazard has, done a very good job playing with Aaron Rodgers. I tend to think that the talent level, at least about what they could be, is higher than the Bears. But this is the thing that you're saying, Bear, is that right now, the Bears, at least 1 week in, have shown a better, more consistent, talented wide receiver core than what the Packers had. Cliff, you're saying, how do I think the Bears' improved secondary and Rodgers' worst wide receivers will affect the game? We can talk about that a little bit. I will start that, Cliff, and I'll get back to it. I just want to make sure I get back into this film here, but want to make sure I get all the questions out. See a lot of swing passes, Jones forcing our DBs to tackle in space, then hit with the run up the middle. Yeah, I think that's probably a decent idea of what they'll try to do, Jeremy. So we're saying, see the run game taking it over. Run game didn't look good in the stats last week. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and we got Duke in here. Do I think Aaron tries to play perfect football against Bears, or he takes chances? I hope he tries to play perfect football, because I tend to think that he plays it too conservatively. But I mean, I'll tell you what, I know this is probably not going to make a lot of Bears fans happy. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers comes out and plays like shit again. I can't think of a game where he played 2 games back to back and didn't look good. I think you're going to get the best version of Aaron Rodgers, and it's going to be a tough matchup. But we will see what happens. And then Arlaw's saying, Justin, correct, Justin, because the player screened himself from, it's talking about the interception. Okay. So this is just to show you how they out of sorts came off of a timeout. And then this is how it ended up looking. I'll let it play through for you. Not a big play, but I love it, because to me, this is what I talk about, where as much as they were out of sorts and didn't look the part, it was still Aaron Rodgers kind of finding and dialing it up where it needed to be. And so I like this because it's just a little different. I mean, again, there's that pre-snap motion where we're going to, let's get that. Have the running back come out here. Maybe we're going to do a little screen, something of that sort. But it's actually just a little snag route here by Cobb that just kind of cuts it up right here and gets this little hole where linebackers here, DBs here, and then fits it in. And that is essentially what gets the play open for Cobb. I tell you this because this is, look, we're razzled. We just called a timeout, clock management. We're down by 7. This is frustrating. Just dropped a touchdown by Watson. What are we going to do? And then they come out here and still find a way to settle down and deliver it. And yes, they still got their ass beat in this game, but I think it's a good example of how he's still able to dial it. And as Jeremy was saying, didn't throw it to Cobb much, but there's that reaction of, okay, well, he doesn't trust Watson. He doesn't trust Doubs. The Bears are automatically going to win. He still trusts Randall Cobb there on 3rd and 4 to come up with it, and they do. That is the connection that they do have. So if you're going to consider anything, consider that. And then moving along, let's get to this. I'll show you just the Minnesota offense and how this defense looked against Minnesota. So I'll let it play, and we'll run it back and film. Jeremy was saying that was a great pass to Cobb. Does that play work if Roquan or Morrow instead of Hicks? I mean, maybe, but Cliff, I got to tell you, I'm a big Jordan Hicks fan. I think he's a very good player. I just think that's a situation where it's a good scheme. Hicks doesn't do anything wrong. He bumps Cobb just to try to throw off the timing of the route, but he has to get to his man. And just inherently, Cobb knows when to cut it up. So, and that goes to Jeremy's point, which is like, it's just a good pass, good route. That's the connection. The whole thing with Devontae Adams that's missing is they used to have this ridiculous symbiotic relationship where they could almost look at each other and go like, you think what I'm thinking? Yeah. And then they would just destroy defenses. It's not that level with Cobb because of the separation for many years, but there's still some of that, which is, hey, you know me, you know what I want from you. Cobb's like, I got it. And then boom, they connect on a good pass. So some of it is still there. Okay. This is the long and short story of the game, but I figured we'd just kind of talk about it. This is Justin Jefferson, who just completely torched the Green Bay Packers. I tell you this because let me be very, 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 very clear. Darnell Mooney is not, and I am willing to say never will be, the talent that Justin Jefferson is. And that is not so much of an indictment on Darnell Mooney. It is just that Justin Jefferson, I would probably take him as, if I had to take, I'm starting a 33rd team, and they tell me I can't take like a quarterback, who's the first player I take? Even now make it easier. You have to take a wide receiver. You can pick one from any team. This for your 33rd team. You can't take a quarterback as the first pick. You steal one player. It's got to be a wide receiver. Justin Jefferson is the guy that I'm stealing. That is how special of a talent he is. So understand that what I'm going to show you here with Justin Jefferson, we can try to say, well, Darnell Mooney may be able to, maybe. But understand that what Jefferson does is so unique and rare that you're hoping that for every time Justin Jefferson does it 4 out of 5 times, I'm hoping Mooney can do it maybe twice. So let's kind of show you what this looks like. This is just, I mean, yes, that we can go through the whole route concept, but I just want to show you kind of what happens here. You're going to watch this little dig route, which is just so beautifully ran. But I want to kind of talk about a few things here, and this is the truth to the game with the Bears and what they're going to play. If you are expecting and want Justin Fields to light up this Green Bay secondary, you are going to have to rely on the receivers to do a few things similar to the way that Justin Jefferson and the others did in this game, which is you need to be violent in your runs. And what I mean by that is you need to challenge and rush at that DB. You need to put them on the back of their feet and going, I don't know where you're going. And you're just eating up so much space. And then you are violent in your cuts. I'll let it play and you can see it, but watch Jefferson here when he actually cuts on the dig. Watch how violent it is. And watch Eric Stokes, which, let me be clear, Eric Stokes is the guy here that they literally drafted because he runs like 4.2, 4.3. It's not a speed issue. It is simply how dynamic and violent Jefferson runs his routes and eats space and creates conflict. Because the whole thing is, at the basic level, Justin Jefferson understands what 21's job is. 21's job is absolutely to cover Justin Jefferson. But above all else, nothing cheap and nothing deep. So I cannot let you beat me deep. Above all else, I cannot let that happen. So watch how Justin Jefferson plays this dig route. And then I'll rewind it back and show you as we go through it. But it's masterful. And this is how, if you want the Bears to do it, they have to take advantage of it in the same way. Just watch nothing else. We'll go over the shift in a second, but watch Justin Jefferson. They come up and play press. Big no-no. Right there. Like it's just, so I mean, here, we'll go over the shift. So they do this little shift here. They bring, number 4 is Dalvin Cook now, for those that are unaware, they changed his number. So Dalvin Cook motions in. They actually bring out Thielen. This is what I talk about. Okay, we're going to motion one in, then we're going to bring out Thielen wide. Notice how the secondary changes up completely everything that they're doing here. They bring up their linebackers. They bring up everybody into press. And then they end up actually dropping those 2 backers that are mugged in the A. That's Quay Walker's 7, 59 is Devondre Campbell. And they're playing press First off, the release here by Justin Jefferson is phenomenal. He's already got the inside track. So even if he wanted to stack and shed up here, he probably could. But then this is why Stokes is a first-round pick and why he gets paid what he paid. He still does a pretty good job here responding and recovering. Gets there. I mean, it's getting bad here. But he's still relatively in the hip. But then watch what happens as we get this. This little jab out before exploding in, watch how Stokes responds to it. At this point, yep, he is back here at the original jab foot, and Jefferson is all up in here. I am not telling you that Darnell Mooney can be Justin Jefferson, but if you want the receivers to make plays against this secondary, it's going to need to look like that. Let me be clear, they are a much more talented secondary than the Bears are a receiver core. They have, to me, it's one of the best, it's probably the best first string defensive secondary in the league. There are other teams like the Browns that have more depth, but as far as Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, Rasul Douglas, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, doesn't get better than them. And so you're not going to really beat them athletically. You're probably not going to beat them in their mental game, except as we kind of, before I go on and show you more plays, I'll finish up just on my notes so you kind of understand where we're going here with this defense. I mean, the Green Bay defense plays this Minnesota offense as, take this and apply it to the Bears. Throughout this game, their defense played the offense pretty much straight up. What I mean by that is, if the Vikings are playing 21 personnel, they're going 8 men in the box, bringing a safety down. If they're going 11 personnel, then they pull out their nickel, and Rasul Douglas was in the nickel a lot, and they're playing it straight up. There wasn't a ton of simulated pressures or creepers or exotic looks. It was just pretty much straight up our athletes versus yours. They may try to play with Justin Fields a little more as a young quarterback and see if they can get him to bait him into bad throws. But if there's anything to take from this game, there wasn't a lot of fluff. Moving along, Jeremy probably knows this as he watched about it, but if the Bears want to win, I would try to really hope that they hone in on this. The way that Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings beat the shit out of this Vikings secondary and this Vikings defense was they consistently forced, and I mean legitimately forced, the Green Bay Packers secondary to communicate, to know their rules. If this man crosses here and this one runs a post here and then this one curls, who's taking what? In real time. And that practice, that exercise, I'm sorry, Mustafa, I know I'm like batting it around, sorry. That practice is exactly what is going to cause problems for the Packers defense if the Bears play it right. And the good news is we saw some of that in San Francisco. The little crosser to drag Mooney over, bringing Pringle on the wheel. We're going to sell run, and then we're going to have this conflict where you brought all these people in the box, and Pringle's going to come across. Then we're going to have Blasingame out in the flat. Griffin's going to run across. Then we're going to have EQ. They need to force this Green Bay secondary to communicate. And if they don't, then I'm not sure that you're going to probably be as successful. But one thing that was very clear, and I have to say it was quite surprising to me and I appreciated it, was that traditionally speaking, most of the time, the way I feel, I'm trying to think of a team recently that did this. Well, I mean, the Bears are a good example. They're putting new pieces into a secondary. They're a little different, but I mean, this is the whole point. When you are playing as a secondary, I've got my example as I'm trying to surf here. The Washington Commanders last year, they had Cameron Curl, Benjamin St-Juste, William Jackson, Kendall Fuller, and was it Troy Apke or who's their safety? Their other safety. Regardless, their defense got torched last year. And the whole argument was that they were hurt and they weren't cohesive as a unit. What I found extremely interesting was that this Green Bay unit played together all of last year. And for whatever reason, they came out in week one looking like they had no chemistry, didn't understand each other's communication calls, their rules. I'm not saying that repeats itself, But I would certainly take a bet on it because that right there is literally what killed this defense last week. The activity of forcing them to communicate, creating conflict in your route distribution, and then putting the onus on the defense to sort it out. And that practice completely short-fused them, and it opened up Jefferson and a bunch of others to destroy them. So if you are hoping that the Bears can pull anything, that is a key to victory, in my opinion. Get your receivers to create conflict and run as violently as Jefferson does here, where he's able to snap. I mean, look at just as I said, the way he snaps off on this. And of course, we can do all the motions and everything else, and you can talk about it because all those are there. But this is a Jefferson designer play through and through. This is never meant to go to anybody else, and it's just the way that he snaps right there, and then it's off. It's you need that level of play to get that going for you. And then let's show you this. We've got 2 more after this play, and then we'll do some Q&A. But as always, I want to make sure I don't fall too far behind. So let's go to what you're saying here. And they said, Mustafa, my apologies. As I know I was shaking the camera, so let me not shake the camera. I've doing it on a little bit of a rinky-dinky setup, but we'll get it going. Jeremy, you were saying Quay Walker looked really good going back to our chat about Roquan. I saw Walker playing through blocks. Yeah. Jeremy, I mean, and if you were to ask me, Jeremy, what's the difference? Quay Walker is 6'4". Roquan's 6 foot. I don't want to give him the 5. He's 6 foot, but that is the difference. And I mean, this is the thing. You want to talk just about it, but this doesn't have to be a Roquan versus the world conversation. But Quay Walker also lays his shoulder into people and thumps them. I can't tell you the last time I saw Roquan Smith detonate somebody. Yes, he hit Trey Lance very hard last week. But when's the last time you really saw him lay the wood on somebody the way that Quay Walker did 2 or 3 times in this game? Cliff, you're saying Jefferson's a future. I mean, if he plays the way he's continuing to play, yes. Bear Truth, you're saying violence. Yeah, I mean, you need to, and I say violence not so much in like beating up the DB, but you have to be playing like your hair's on fire. Like every route, you are trying to eat as much space as fast as possible. And you have the DV playing on the back of his heels going, I don't know if he's going deep, if he's cutting in. I'm trying to adjust. And then you want the DB sitting there not only trying to do that, but they're reading other things where, oh, crap, I see EQ cutting down. Do I cut fourth or do I follow Mooney? Do I think that Savage has Mooney if I let him go? That is what you need. Mooney and Jefferson very similar, but Jefferson is a bit more overall game. Really impressed with Jefferson playing outside. Yeah, Jefferson is multiple. And yes, Mooney is multiple too, but to me, the thing with Jefferson is he is built different, Jeremy. And I don't mean different just like, oh, he's elite. It's truly like his arm length, his leg length, the movement. It looks funky watching him run. Not in he's a bad runner, just that the way he eats up space and runs his routes and his body control and throttling down and sinking his hips is different than most other receivers out there, including Darnell Mooney. More worried about Minnesota than anyone else in our division. They look stupid good on offense. Yeah, it's 1 week, Jeremy. That's one thing I'll give it is like it's 1 week, so I need to see more. But the one thing is, I'm telling you, I was a skeptic of Kevin O'Connell before this game. Like I was like, we'll see. I am absolutely ready to say after one game, it's real. I'm not saying it's real like they're going to go to the Super Bowl or anything like that. But as far as a cohesive offensive game plan against a real opponent, it's real. And yes, they played in a nice dome without rain and all that. So I can't tell you whether or not the Bears have a real offensive coordinator. And I understand they were playing in a monsoon. So I will reserve judgment on Getsy. But the reason I bring this up is the Bears were playing against the 49ers, another real team. But what I do know is that in clean, fair conditions, Minnesota was playing a very good Green Bay defense on talent level and found a way to put them in a blender and disassemble them via Kevin O'Connell's mind. And I give him a ton of credit. He is the real deal. That offense is real. Arla, I appreciate the kind of compliments. I've talked about it, Mustafa. I will do my best to stop shaking it. I need a better setup, but I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, so I'm literally doing this off my kitchen table. Let's see. Getsy knows the pack. I bet I'm hoping you're right, Cliff. I'm hoping that Getsy pulls rabbits out of his hat to really weaponize our offense against that defense. Bear, you're saying we're cooking with grease. Coach of the year. As I said, Jeremy, I don't know. We'll see, but I think that he is a very, very legitimate offensive mind. And I mean, if for nothing else, like if you want to have week one overreactions, was Kevin O'Connell really the brain drain of the LA Rams? I don't think so, of course. I think Sean McVay is awesome, but certainly it looked like they were lacking juice where the Vikings came out and looked better on offense than they have at any time in the last few years under Zimmer. So it's interesting. And yes, the Green Bay Packers with Karen Rodgers and everything else. Okay. This is, what is this? I didn't list it, so this is the fun part. We're just drive 1, play 6. So let's see what it is. I believe this is the little like fade route that Jefferson does to get open, or it's a little out route. Yeah. This is the little out route by Quay. So Jeremy, as much as we were talking about how good Quay Walker is, this is a good example for you. And this is what I mean, where if they're going to, I don't mean to continue to harp on this, but this is literally what I'm talking about, is if their rules are not going to be consistent, punish them. We are going to move Jefferson all over the place, and if you decide to put Quay Walker on him, that's your fault. And this is exactly what they did. So I'm not saying you got to move Darnell Mooney or Dante Pettis everywhere, but I would certainly flirt with it a little bit, because in this situation, and they had this happen. There was a play where Justin Jefferson was being covered by Preston Smith, their edge rusher. Not a winning business model. And you can see that here where they come out in the formation. You get Jefferson here in the slot, which Jefferson is right here. This is Quay Walker, inside linebacker 7, who's an incredible. When they drafted Quay, I thought that it was because they wanted him to play in the slot. So I don't even think it's an awful placement. It's just really not the right matchup. Thielen in the slot? Maybe. Dalvin Cook? Maybe. Jefferson? No way. And this is where you get this little out route where Quay Walker's back here because Jefferson's already out here. And then it's green grass for a few more yards here. So let's kind of show you that in real time. And once again, this is what we talk about. Like, you want to talk about wide receiver being a savant. So he not only gets behind Quay, but he understands I'm behind Quay. I am playing in Quay Walker's blind spot. He can't see me. Look at where Quay is compared to where Jefferson is. And at this point, we're running upfield for more yards on more yards on more yards. And that's how good of an athlete Quay Walker is. He catches up. But at this point, it's game over. So again, finding conflict. That is how the Bears need to win this game. And of course, yes, it's all the other stuff you're going to hear everybody else tell you. They need to win the game, or they need to run the ball well to win the game. They need to play solid defense. They need to play complementary football. But take advantage of these miscommunications in the passing game. And then I guess I'll talk about a little bit of a bigger point. The San Francisco 49ers D is very different than this Green Bay Packers D, and we're going to see different ways of playing it. San Francisco 49ers D is very, very aggressive, charging upfield. They're an even front, means 4 down linemen. They play a lot of man, single high safety. This is the total polar opposite of that. It is an odd front, big space eaters, Kenny Clark, Jaron Reed, Devontae Wyatt, Dean Lowry, those type of guys. And then we're going to have these athletic 6'4", I call them condors because they're just so long wingspans, in Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell that are going to run sideline to sideline if you get outside of these big space eaters. And then on the back end, we're just going to zone it off. We're just going to play zone. We're going to have good rules and communications, and that's how we win the game. And so beyond that, understand that when the Bears are playing this, they're going to have to approach it differently than, we just did this on San Francisco and it worked. They are going to have to. My concern is that they ran at a defense, and some of this is you don't know how much you can glean because they were playing in a monsoon. But I do have legitimate, serious questions of, okay, if they were running at a defense that they're a very good defensive line, but they're charging upfield, what does it look like when they're facing Kenny Clark? Like, I watched Eric Armstead do some good work and Javon Kinlaw do some good work to Tevin Jenkins. Kenny Clark is a different monster. And Kenny Clark on Sam Mustipher is a different monster. Devontae Wyatt, I sent Jeremy a play on DMs this week of Devontae Wyatt just completely shucking off Ed Ingram. So I don't think that this is going to be an easy task for this offensive line. So just be aware of that. This is the touchdown to Justin Jefferson. I'll just let you watch it and play it through. This is what I talk about when I say Kevin O'Connell's the man. Like, you're getting two motions that are fooling up the defense, and it's just wide open. And there's the gritty just to lock it all off, because it wouldn't be a Jefferson touchdown if he's not hitting the gritty on somebody. All right, so you watch this here and you're seeing it where this is 4th and 1, by the way. Talk about some balls by O'Connell in the first quarter to say, no, we want to get points on the board. I mean, just watch how the defense responds to Thielen in motion, fakes the little ball fake, and then comes across. Oh, but that's not enough. Then we need to motion people over. And you can see Rasul Douglas is trying to tell them, carry him as he comes across the formation, because I still need to get out here. So go ahead and carry Jefferson. There's the motion. And then as we see, there becomes a jumble here where they get mixed up with Irv Smith here and Thielen, and Jefferson's out the back door. Once again, rules and communications screwing up their offense or their defense. I mean, look at this, where you've literally got them trying to push off or call pass pushes for Irv Smith. Then they're worried about this coming loose. Thielen, you've got 3 guys here. Nobody's down here for Jefferson. Nobody. And touchdown. Okay, let me get to, we got one final play, I believe, after this, but let me, tackles you like Big Brother tackles you. Yes, Bear, that is a very good way to put it. Very good way to put it. Cliff, what you were saying is making the defenders think it's second guess. Yeah, you have to, Cliff. You have to. On the failed 4th down by Green Bay, I saw a breakdown that called 3 straight zone plays on 4th down. Green Bay called a zone beater, and then that and your thoughts. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll touch on that. I'll star that J2K, and we'll come back to it. But because we're getting close here, let me just finish out this last play, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A. Because I've already carried you guys 2 hours, so my apologies. Okay, this is, how do I have this titled? I know this is a sack. Oh, I said literally look at the formation because I just thought it was unique and interesting. Rashawn Gary, 52, is the guy that ends up making the sack here, but I'll let you play it, let you see it as they play it through. Once again, Jefferson in motion. And this is just Ed Ingram, Ed Ingram had an awful day. But I want to show you this because this is the type of stuff that, make no mistake, I understand everybody's high on our offensive line. I still think that they have a lot to prove. And in my opinion, this edge duo, this defensive line is nothing to scoff at. And so they end up motioning. Let's get into it more. They motion Jefferson across. And you can already see this is once again that, hey, we got burned earlier. I really don't want to Quay's over here. Like, I don't want to cover Jefferson. You do it, Rasul. Okay, so Rasul comes over. That was another part of my notes, too, is they like to use Rasul Douglas and nickel a lot. I have to touch on that because if they continue to put Rasul Douglas and the nickel exclusively, please put Darnell Mooney or somebody in there, because I certainly think that you can get some nice play on Rasul Douglas there. Rasul Douglas is very much there to beat up slot receivers, but he is the least athletic of Jair and Eric Stokes. If they want to put Rasul Douglas there, I think you can make some plays work with either an Equanimous or especially a Pettis with his route running, or Darnell Mooney. Okay, so I wanted to draw this formation just because the Bears will even do this too. This isn't too odd where you have one guy over here and 3 over here. But just watch what it ends up doing here, because as we roll through, they end up, and this is, I'll teach you just a little bit about football. They have 90 here, Jerron Reed, playing cop coverage. Cop coverage, as I call it, cop rush. It's just contain outside pressure. So he ends up rushing here to try to stem up anything if the running back were to come here. But then his job is that if this defensive end has a 2-way go and comes inside, 90 is here to contain up over. So that is essentially how that works. but you end up seeing it become a one-on-one rush, which this is the idea, and this is why I said look at the formation. This defense is going to try to scheme up their superior talent to what the Bears have on offense and try to force one-on-one matchups to take advantage of this offensive line. Can we get Rashawn Gary on Tevin Jenkins, or Preston Smith on Larry Borum, or Devontae Wyatt on Sam Mustipher, or Kenny Clark? This is literally what they're going to try to do, and you can see here, this is the one leaky hole. Jeremy, as high as we are on Vikings, Ed Ingram looked like trash this game, and they take advantage of it. Whereas you roll it through here, you can see, look at that, the left side of that offensive line. They are all worried about two guys, when really the center should have passed it off and came over to help. And now you have a one-on-one with one of the best right tackles in the league in Brian O'Neill, but then you have Ed Ingram, a rookie, trying to take on Rashawn Gary. Not a winning business model. And yes, sure, I think Cousins should get it out, but I mean, you want to talk earlier, we were talking, just kind of go back and dovetail to the beginning of the show. I had said in the very beginning when Fields took that sack, there was other options. I mean, I guess you can throw it here, but Quay's going to come up and boom him. This isn't open, and this DB is sitting on this route. There is nothing open. And this is how Green Bay takes advantage of it, where this sack ends up blowing up Kirk Cousins. So let's scroll that through. And it's game over. Okay. Let's bring you back, because that is all of the film. I appreciate everybody for hanging out through 2 hours and 12 minutes of this, but just want to make sure we're thorough about giving the right time and analysis for the Bears game, as well as pivotal plays there, as well as keys to beat this Green Bay team. Jay Sanders, you're saying I might have touched on this, but what's the deal with Jenkins and Patrick? Are they using mind games? Oh, no, they're not using mind games. I will tell you, I mean, I guess and let me be clear, we will do, it's 1:13 right now. I will do Q&A until 1:30 p.m. I say 1:30, I'm in West Coast time. That's 3:30 for you Chicagoans. So next 17 minutes, I'll do Q&A. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about, get it off your mind and send it in the chat, and we'll go over it. First of which, Jay Sanders, mind games. It wasn't discussed as mind games. What was talked about is that they were just trying to get in-game live reps for Lucas Patrick, and they didn't want to displace Cody Whitehair or Sam Mustipher, because you literally aren't going to be able to snap with the Q-tip. So we're not going to play you outside. You're an interior offensive lineman, so it's either Cody or Tevin. They decided to take Tevin out and put Jay Sanders in. Jay Sanders, I'm looking at your comment, Lucas Patrick in. I think that, to me, that was one of look, it worked out fine. And Jeremy was saying earlier he thought Tevin played a little better than Lucas Patrick. I was actually quite impressed with Lucas Patrick. I have to be honest. I thought he had some really good plays, even on rundowns, getting push. Like, it made me really excited for what he can be as a center. I don't think that that's a good opportunity or a good idea to sit there and take out your young tackle, who's arguably your most talented. And I don't even think it's mind games, but let him settle in. Let him get the reps and be situated as a starter, not continuously saying, oh, wait, be hot. Oh, no, come out. You're going to be out for 7 plays. Now you're back in. And Lucas Patrick talked about that in Green Bay, that he used to have to do that. So sure. Is there something that Tevin Jenkins could learn and learn to adapt and deal with? Absolutely. But I don't think it's the right move. But I don't run the team. And Jay Sanders, to your point, it wasn't mind games. They were just trying to get Patrick live reps at the cost of Tevin Jenkins being in the game, and I disagree with that. Bear Truth, what's good is Dominic Robinson can do so many different things. I don't want to overload him, but I think Dominic Robinson is going to – everybody wants him to start because he had 2 sacks. I'm not ready to tell him to start, but I certainly think that keep him in that developmental role. Like, if anybody recalls, the way that Travis Gibson was used was you'll sit behind Robert Quinn, Khalil Mack, and Leonard Floyd. You'll learn how to be a 4-3 defensive end transitioning to a 3-4. And we'll get you in on spot work and see if you can make a spark. And that actually happened a little bit. And then last year, when he had to step in full time, he looked good. I think that is the role for Dominic Robinson. Yes, let me be clear. He looks better than I even thought he would. And he was my second favorite pick of the draft behind Brisker. But I still think let the guy grow into it. He's still very young, and sure, get him experience. It's all valuable. But I think he's best coming in as that second, third wave guy that comes in fresh. He's super athletic. And the offensive line has been having to battle with Robert Quinn all day. And then all of a sudden you bring in this guy and he's super fresh and athletic. And the offensive lineman doesn't even know what he has coming to him. And then all of a sudden Dominic Robinson beats him with his athleticism. Dominic Robinson, 7 tackles, 2 sacks. Yeah, it's absolutely a good start. Swanky, thanks for joining us, and hope you had a good time. Bear down. Thank you, Cliff. Always appreciate the kind words. And yes, everybody hit the like, subscribe, notification bells, do all that. Tareen, thank you as well. $1 million question: how do we beat the Pack? Foster, thank you so much. Jeremy, I'm not skipping you. I will give my prediction and everything. I don't like giving out predictions, but I know everybody enjoys it, so I'll do it. And then maybe the Bears wanted Patrick to get Patrick up to games. That's exactly what they wanted, Cliff. I just, on a personal level, I don't think that that's the best thing for Tevin. And I like Lucas Patrick a lot. I like Tevin Jenkins a lot more. So I'm naturally going to be a little biased about what they do with Tevin. Okay. Cliff, you asked me earlier, how do I think the Bears' improved secondary and Rodgers' worst wide receivers will affect the game? I think that the secondary is certainly improved, which means Rodgers shouldn't be able to pick on it as much, and he doesn't have his superhero weapon in Devontae Adams. I think that they are also coached better. So I do think that the Bears' secondary will play the Packers' wide receivers better. I do worry, though, about it's going to – this sounds wild, but to me it comes down to one way or the other. Either Luke Getsy has a direct pulse on what's going on in Green Bay and is going to out-scheme them. And what I mean by that is he's going to know exactly what's going to come, and he's going to be telling Alan Williams and the staff, this is how we need to play this team. Or alternatively, this offense by Matt LaFleur is going to look different, and they are going to piece up this Bears secondary, even though they may be better and their wide receivers are a little worse. Hope that answers your question. And okay, and then J2K, you were saying the 49ers offensive line duo and Klein was far better than our own. Yeah, our timing isn't where it needs to be. I know 49ers have been running that scheme. Yeah, it's a good question, Jeremy. So we'll get to that as well. Just kind of going through them in order here. Jeremy, you were asking earlier on the failed fourth down by Green Bay. I saw a breakdown in coverage that Donatel called 3 straight zone plays in on fourth down. Green Bay called a zone. Yes. I don't know the exact plays, but I did notice a lot of that, which is what, I mean, just so we kind of get familiar with the way we talk. You'll often hear me say like a phrase like they're catching them on the half beat. That is exactly what that means to me, which is you zig, and I knew you were going to zig, so I zagged. And in a summation, that's what I felt like I saw a lot with this Green Bay-Minnesota game, is it always felt like the Packers were a step behind, Minnesota was a step ahead, and because of that, they were constantly setting traps for them. And I like fighting and boxing, so I boxed as a youngster, and I mean, that's kind of the whole idea is a real savvy boxer. They do a good job of remaining a step ahead of their opponent. And so I'm going to step here, and I know you're going to follow through, and I'm going to set a trap and then hit you with an uppercut. That is exactly what it felt like was happening that entire game with the Packers and the Vikings. I'll save that one for the final one, J2K, because I think that's the question. As you said, the $1 million question, how do we beat the Pack? How am I liking Pohl's draft so far in the free agents? I am very impressed, Cliff. I don't ever think I was totally down on the draft, just thought maybe there would have been some different options. I still think Khalil Shakir and Thomas Booker are going to be awesome prospects, but Braxton Jones certainly looks very good for a rookie 5th-round left tackle. I don't think he looks like Trent Williams, and I know Trent Williams got beat a couple times, but I don't think he looks like Tyron Smith or Trent Williams or David Bakhtiari when healthy, like a lot of Bears fans would like you to believe, but I certainly think he's acquitted himself more than enough as a 5th-round tackle. I think Brisker, I've always been high on him, looks the real deal. Dominic Robinson was my second favorite draft pick after Brisker, had a phenomenal debut. Trust Nebner didn't get too much run, so don't have too much to say about him. Sanborn was a great UDFA find, good special teamer, Weatherford, same thing. I'm excited to see different guys like Trevon Wesco get activated, hopefully. Velus Jones is a little bit of a letdown because he obviously hasn't been playing. Doesn't look like he's going to play this year. But overall, I think that it's hard to take anything away from that draft or that free agent approach, considering the situation he was put in and how he's had to build this roster. And in many ways with like bubblegum and scotch tape and toothpicks and Q-tips, because the reality is I'm not even trying to beat up on the team or what he's done. They're spending the least amount of money on any active roster in the league. And for him to be able to still produce wins and decent competitive players is impressive. Jeremy, you're saying the 49ers offensive line duo climbed back. Yes. You asked me how long do I think it'll take to gel. This is a good question. If you ask people like Mitchell Schwartz or others that have played in these zone schemes, Alex Mack, Joe Thomas, back when Kyle Shanahan was in Cleveland, you often hear them say it typically takes about 5, 6, sometimes 7 to 8 weeks. So I do think that, assuming, and this is the hard part, I'm not like I'm here to totally pander to Don Burr, but the reality is you have situations here where I look at the Detroit Lions, and part of the issue is they can't seem to get their offensive line to stay healthy for anything. That is the key crux. Is I think everybody stays healthy 5, 6 weeks, maybe 7, 8, depending on the mental acuity that you have in your offensive line. Which, to be fair, it seems like we have a lot of smart guys in the offensive line room. As far as health, though, that's assuming everybody stays healthy. Like, the offensive line looks pretty good right now with Sam Mustipher. What happens when Lucas Patrick inserts himself? I think it'll be better, but do the protection calls still make it through the same? What about when they're doing their ace blocks where you have a center and a guard duoing up or committing an ace block to get to the second level? All of a sudden, Tevin Jenkins and Cody Whitehair are going to have to learn how that works with Patrick, who, at this point, to be fair, they haven't had as much time with Patrick. It's been all Mustipher through training camp and preseason. So some of that remains on health, and I think it may take a little longer to gel. And then you were saying it was the fourth down at the goal line that Green Bay ran out. Oh, yes. That's the one. Yes, that was the play that drove me freaking crazy, Jeremy, because that was the one where I thought, I put it on Twitter. I had said either A, he handed the ball off on the RPO. Yeah. So I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. He had handed the ball off on the RPO, and he could have thrown it to Mercedes Lewis or scrambled. And I was like, this is a good example of like, why are you making the decisions you're making, Rodgers? And I just didn't appreciate that. All right, and then for our final question here is we have another 7 minutes, but I will admit it does feel like people are mostly wrapping up, and I'm okay with that. I know we've been going for almost 2 hours and 30 minutes here. How do we beat the Packers? So I think you beat the Packers with creating a lot of deception, misdirection, and forcing conflict, forcing them to understand their rules and communications in the pass game. I think that you are going to need to create some misdirection for that line, that defensive line, when you're running the ball, because take advantage of what you have. Now, both Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker are incredibly athletic. But with that being said, if you can get a young linebacker like Quay Walker to bite one way and then you're going the other, that's helpful. Devondre Campbell's more of a savvy vet, may not get that from, but we'll take it where we can get it. We talked about the San Francisco 49ers defensive line, being more athletic and aggressive. Well, the Green Bay Packers defense is much more lumbering. And I'm not telling you they're not athletic or they're slow, but they're not these wide nine, super athletic, get upfield, chase the pass, play the run on the way to the pass. These are much more gap responsibility, gap and a half, trying to eat space, read the play right, then stack and shed. So I think that if you can get some misdirection in the run game, that would help you. And I desperately need the Bears to be more multiple with their running. And what I mean by that is it's not just wide zone or duo. This isn't going to happen, but I'm fucking begging. Like, please run some trap. Please run some counter. Can we get a little more end arounds? Can we get some play action, RPO bubbles? Can we get toss sweeps, jet touch passes? you need to get multiple in the ways that you're going to try to run the ball and get the ball in the playmaker's hands to produce these minimal, small 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yard gains. And then once you get that, can we see if we can get a safety to move up? And then ask Justin to just drop deep bombs on conflict creating passing concepts that force them to communicate. And if there's a failed communication, you may find an alert to hit deep. That is how I think the offense has to play the the Green Bay Packers defense. As far as the Bears defense versus the Packers, I think that what they need to do is I tend to, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I tend to think that the Packers are going to put the ball in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon's hand a lot more. You were saying that Chubb's saying they ran several tosses. It's an example, Chubb. I mean, I'm just saying, like, more than a several. Can I get traps? Can I get counter plays? Can we get beyond just draws and duo? Anyways, Jay Sanders is Mustafa better than Patrick? No, I don't think he's better than Patrick. I think but I think he's solid. I think he's a better player than what we saw the past few years. PFF rated Jenkins at 85. Patrick, yeah, PFF is, they're going to have their opinion. I don't necessarily disagree with it. It's their system. Bakhtiari out. Is he for sure out, Jeremy? I didn't know if Bakhtiari is still for sure been ruled out. This is the game that Quinn breaks out. How good? Josh Nyman's pretty good. I think that Robert Quinn can certainly take advantage of it, which goes back to this Bears defense versus Packers offense. But Josh Nyman, I think, is better than people give him credit for. I mean, sure, Chubbs, and I'm not here to totally get into argument. You actually came in when we have about 2 or 3 minutes left, but I think that there's something more to having a rhythm, and I think you can incorporate more multiplicity in that rhythm than not. Jeremy, do you answer your final question, defense versus offense? I think that they're going to put the ball in the hands of Jones and Dillon and ask Aaron Rodgers to make a few splash plays to Watson, to Dubs, maybe an occasional screen to Tanyan, getting the ball in Randall Cobb's hands as a safety blanket. I think that it's incredibly important to sit there and try to force, I guess I want to say, gap responsibility. Like, you can't, in return, I think Green Bay is incredibly creative in the ways that they use pre-snap motion. They get you rolling one way, then they're dumping off a little backside, swing or flare out or screen. So I think it's incredibly important that the eye discipline of Roquan Smith, Nick Morrow, Kyler Gordon is good. And that really, at the end of the day, when it comes down to passing, the pass rush has to win with 4. The Bears didn't blitz last week. I think blitzing Aaron Rodgers is a death sentence, so I wouldn't want to blitz him. As bad as this, or as shaky as this offensive line may be, I think you have to win with 4. If you can occasionally drop one of those defensive linemen, like I didn't talk about it, but on the Eddie Jackson interception, one of the defensive linemen actually drops into the low hole, which was also really killer. You have Eddie Jackson robbing the intermediate, and then you have one of your defensive linemen playing the low hole. So you're only sending 3, which could be a concern from a pressure standpoint, but you're dropping 8 guys. Good luck trying to fit a pass in there. So if you can win with 4 guys, or occasionally drop 3 and then play really sound defense coverage-wise, your rules, your communications, eye discipline, I think that's how you contain Rodgers and make sure he doesn't make any game-breaking plays. So I think that answers your question, J2K. I'll give you a second to tell me if there's any other part that I didn't account for. I guess special teams would be the only one, and I think their special teams is still a work in progress in Green Bay, but I don't know. I just don't think special teams is going to give up some touchdown, especially not with like Velus Jones isn't in, things like that. So just considering that. Jeremy, you're saying did not practice Friday. Same walk. Yeah, so maybe he won't. My whole thing there is I just think, Jeremy, that's what I was saying, is that when you are you're 0-1 in the division to the Vikings, you could be 0-2 to the Bears. I don't necessarily think that dooms you, but you don't want to be down 0-2 in the division when you're supposed to be Super Bowl contending. So I get a little skeptical of like, yeah, maybe he's not practicing. But I mean, similarly, the 49ers aren't even in as dire of a situation. They lost to the Bears. But now they're playing the Seahawks for their first division game. Is Kittle really not going to play? Sometimes you get those guys in as decoys. Now, that doesn't really work for Bakhtiari. You don't need a decoy left tackle. But, for example, Quay Walker, even him running at 85%, and I guess it's not his legs, it's his shoulder. So, hey, Quay, can you still be in the position and then kind of throw your other shoulder in? That's better than putting in Ty Summers or whoever their backup linebacker is at this point. Chubbs, you're saying you agree we should run the ball like 30. Yeah, I think that's how they're going to have to live this year for the Bears. You don't see us blitzing, but you like to see some stunts to confuse that O-line. Yeah, Jeremy, I'm with it. That's if you're not going to blitz, then you have to mix it up a little bit. Otherwise, you're not going to get any of your one-on-one rushes that way. Otherwise, they're just going to scheme you up with their protection and nullify you. You don't care how good Aaron Rodgers is if the offensive line doesn't block from it. Yeah, I agree. I think that they did an okay job. The issue is that eventually Ed Donatel kind of timed some stuff up and got it there. So then it becomes a question, is Ed Donatel or Alan Williams the better defensive mind? I don't know. I think Ed Donatel is very much as good as Brandon Staley is, Ed Donatel is the most senior out of all of them of the Fangio tree. So I think he carries a little bit more of that true Fangio style ability to lock your offense up more than maybe a Staley or a Giro Evero or any of those guys do at the moment. Minnesota got close to block. Yeah, I mean, sure. And let's be clear, J2K, if for some reason that is something that they can do, the Bears can force a special teams gaffe or mess up, and it plays to the Bears' favor, absolutely, I think that swings it in play for the Bears. And then Renewable staying still too early to think Getsy doesn't have all the plays you mentioned, being in a monsoon. Renewable, that's totally fair. I certainly think that being in a monsoon limited what he was willing to play, just like I think a lot of the passing concepts, he wasn't even unveiling those because what's the point? Justin doesn't feel comfortable throwing this because the ball's got so slick and doesn't have enough grip. So I certainly think that that's true. I'm just going off the point, Renewable, that I have to only work with what I saw in week 1. Is it fair to assume that there's much more? Absolutely. A lot of teams play for very vanilla, which is why I was mentioning with the Green Bay Packers defense, I don't think that they did anything too exotic. They may roll out more exotic looks in week 2. In the same way that you're saying, it's fair to assume that perhaps Luke Getsy may call more unique runs, but didn't do it in a monsoon. So we'll have to see how that looks. Robbie, you're saying Rodgers sabotages game. Sabotage game if too many. Oh, you're saying Rodgers will sabotage the game if too many things go wrong early. Yeah, I mean, so sure. I think if you can get the Bears to force those mistakes, but that's what we're going to see. So I will give it final thing. If anybody has anything other than that, I'll let you filter in questions for a little more, but I will get ready to do a sign off here. I will give my prediction because I guess I should just bowed out if nobody forced it, but so it's on the record. So people like Handsome Duke and others can come at me a little. I really want to be clear. I think the Bears have a better chance to beat the Packers than they have in multiple years recently. I think it's a very, very wouldn't shock me if the Bears won. I mean that. I think it's a very, very close game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, but I see Tereen's over here saying 23-21 Bears. I actually have it 24-20 Packers. I think that at home in Lambeau with a team that's got embarrassed in Minnesota, they're trying to get off the schneid and back onto the winning record. It's a divisional game that they know they need to win. The Bears are playing with house money, so yes, that's why I think the Bears are dangerous. But I think that Aaron Rodgers finds a way to drive the dagger in, and this is where I'm sure – I haven't even read it yet, Chubb, but I'm sure this is not a very happy message. You should have a Green Bay carved into your head. Yeah, I mean, that's fine, Chubbs, and that's where you fan how you want to fan. But this is what I feel where, and I'm not mad at you for picking Bears or Tereen for picking Bears. I would simply tell you, Chubbs, and by the way, Chubbs, I mean this. I hope I'm wrong. You know my Twitter, find me, and if they win, I would ask you, please don't send me 1,700 messages, but you can fill up a 240-character tweet with as much haha, told you so, you were wrong, ha 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 ha, whatever. Do it. I will do you a favor. I won't even return the same if the Packers win. But the same way that you think I'm a traitor for picking the Packers, I'm just logistically speaking, what reason in history would you have to think that the Bears win this game? When has the Packers game when has Aaron Rodgers ever faltered or really shown you that, I watched him when they had their best chance in 2018. I watched them beat up and bruise Rodgers. And I watched him come out in the second half and still win off of one knee. I'm sorry. He had a bad game in Minnesota. Cool. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think that all of a sudden he fell off a cliff and you're never going to see that same killer instinct Aaron Rodgers that drives a dagger in the heart of the Bears as he's yelling, "I fucking own you" in the end zone. I don't think it happens. So like I said, it's okay. I have no reason to hope the Bears lose. I want them to win, but I try to be fair in my analysis. I don't think it happens. So like I said, if they win, everybody that's watching this, please feel free to fill up my mentions with "told you so." But as far as I'm concerned, I have to go 24-20 Bears. Foster saying Bears stun them by 7 points. I like it. To be clear, I did say 4-point loss, so I do think the Bears covered the spread of a 10.5. Was it 10.5? That's utterly ridiculous. I don't think it'll be that bad, but I get you. And then Ravi wants ESPN to question life of the blowout. Tareen, I appreciate it. Well, I will say, coming back, I just can't abide that. No, I get you, Chubbs. Like I said, I mean it. Roast me if they win. I hope I'm wrong. I mean this when I say, like, I go to bed angry if the Packers win Sunday night. I literally will not have a good day the next day. It would make me nothing happier than the Bears to be 2-0, because I also think that they probably win against the Texans and the Giants, barring any new developments. So if they find a way to win, nothing would make me happier, and I mean that. Ravi, you want him. It's not an iPad, sir. It's a Surface tablet. I'll never forget the gift where he's just looking at you, just throws the Surface tablet. Last year's team or any other team that has nothing to do with this year at all. Sure, I get you, Chubbs. Foster saying always the first time for everything. Like Chris Conti has anything to do with our safeties now. It'd take a lot to beat Green Bay. I just don't see us winning. I think Rodgers takes advantage of the youth in our secondary and Fields and running backs. Yeah, Jeremy, like I said, I'm right there with you, man. I genuinely hope the Bears win. I just don't think it happens. If we get constant pressure on Rodgers, it'll be a close game. Well, that's where I'm at. I do think it'll be a close game, but I think that in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers finds a way to seal the deal. And nothing would make me happier than if he's really starting to fall off the cliff and Father Time has come for him, but I'm not ready to say as much. I watched him deliver a perfect ball to Christian Watson on the first meaningful play of his season in Minnesota. And who knows? You want to talk about, well, last season's Bears don't matter. One play changes everything. I watched Aaron Rodgers deliver a perfect touchdown ball to Christian Watson, and he dropped it. That could have changed the whole complexion of that game. So I certainly think Aaron Rodgers still has it. Foster, I hear you. I like I said, I hope you're right. I hope that there is a first time and the Bears end up winning. Cliff, you're saying 1917 Bears, lower scoring game with either team getting that winning. Well, sure. I'm hoping that Pat O'Donnell finds a way to muff a punt or hold the ball wrong and they miss a field goal. That would be ideal. Okay. And then Chubbs is saying if we're fifths, we'd all be drunk. Yes. All right. Everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate you all more than you know. Thank you for hanging out with me for the last 2 hours and 40 minutes. As always, I hope that this was enjoyable, insightful, educational, fun. You learned a little bit. The analysis was good. I always appreciate talking with you all. As always, if you want to contribute to Bear Necessities in any way, Jackpot2123, it's down in the description as well. You can email me if you want to come on the show, leave voicemails, do anything of that sort. And as always, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, help out the algorithm for Aldo Gandia, our president, and Barroom Network. And I look forward to enjoying the hostilities of football tomorrow with you all in some way, shape, or form. And we'll talk tomorrow. And please tune in. It's Bear football during the game, halftime, after the game, as well as Barfly Tailgate tomorrow morning, Football Goon, Fantasy Football. So there's always content here on Barroom Network for you if you're looking to consume some. And thank you all for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bear down, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.